hidden for 20 years, and exposed by Scarlet Witch. This video is purely for entertainment, and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting, and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 26, Abandoning the Forest for a Tree. Natasha Romanoff walked into the SHIELD building with a symbiotic talisman in her hand. The agents along the way nodded to her. Although Natasha Romanoff has only joined SHIELD for a few years, she has become a 10th level agent due to her powerful strength. In SHIELD, only people like Hawkeye can compare to her, so for Natasha Romanoff, there's generally no secret she can't watch. She scanned her ID card and started searching for documents with her fingers on the screen. There was a sudden silence. After a while, she typed 2 words, Bai Xi. In an instant, countless messages appeared on the screen. There are many people in this world with this name. Natasha Romanoff immediately searched precisely. Ohio, 1995 out. Bai Xi's photo was on it, and Natasha Romanoff clicked it right away. But Bai Xi, male, Asian, disappeared in 1995. So simple that Natasha Romanoff thought it was a top secret SHIELD document. Others clicked on a lot of documents, but when it came to Bai Xi, there were only a few words. Are there people in this world that SHIELD can't find? As long as Bai Xi hadn't left the lighthouse country, this could not have existed. Natasha Romanoff thought of this and turned everything off nonchalantly. Then put the ID card in his trouser pocket, turn around and leave. I don't know why, but Nick Fury is hiding her. Drip, drip. A serious looking Nick Fury picks up the phone. Sir. Natasha Romanoff checked the man's information. I see. After Nick Fury finished speaking, he hung up the phone. One eye looks out the window. There seemed to be some words in his eyes. Lana. The orphan, who had been adopted, then fled and met Bai Xi out of nowhere, and later found out that he had a mysterious ability. Can control anything with a magnetic field, even flight. Whether there are other abilities is temporarily unknown. Bai Xi. Male, age unknown, because the appearance has not changed from 8 years ago. Asian, from Long Kingdom, the time of coming to Lighthouse Country is unknown. This record made Nick Fury think Bai Xi appeared out of thin air. Definitely, what scares Nick Fury the most is that every step of Bai Xi seems to be intentional. In Ohio in 1993, his neighbors were the Natasha Romanoff family. It later turned out that both Melina and Alexei were polar bear agents, and the Natasha Romanoff and Yelena he has always cultivated have become the famous Black Widow, and they are the best among the Black Widow. This is also the reason why he dare not let Natasha Romanoff know Bai Xi exists. Nick Fury has never been so afraid of people. Even Alexander Pierce, he thought Alexander was a fool. Then Bai Xi came to New York without any records, immediately came into contact with Lorna, the super ability person. He then became a shareholder of the Stark Group. And when Captain Marvel came to Earth, he even said, "Welcome to C-53 planet Earth. Ability is unknown. Strength is unknown, except for gender, male and female. Everything else is unknown." How could Nick Fury not be afraid of this existence? For a time, he suspected that Bai Xi was an alien. But all indications are that he is an Earthling. Nick Fury is deeply afraid of Bai Xi. The Bai Xi that Nick Fury fears at the moment is in the Stark Group. Tony Stark couldn't help showing off his heart and invited Bai Xi to come and have a look. What are you looking at? Look at his newly recruited assistant secretary. Every time Tony hires an assistant, the first thing he looks at is not ability, but looks appearance. Can pass the test, then look at other. It's very Tony. This also makes Bai Xi sigh. It is indeed a dragon that gives birth to a dragon and a phoenix to the phoenix. Playboy children are also playboys back then. Howard Stark was no less romantic than Tony at all. "Hi, Mr. Bai. Mr. Tony is waiting for you." Just when Bai Xi was thinking about it, a girl who was much taller than Tony stepped on high heels and walked in front of him. Blonde hair, young and beautiful, and the little freckles that lighthouse people like very much. Because it is a defect, but they don't think freckles are defects, so they regard freckles as a unique beauty. But I have to say that freckles are really beautiful on some people's faces. Okay. Bai Xi followed her and watched her twist and turn. "What's your name?" "Pepper," Sir, Pepper. Pepper said with a smile, then pressed the elevator. The elevator is actually controlled by Jarvis, so Tony knew right away that Bai Xi was coming. Beep. Pepper, go get me and Bai 2 glasses of champagne. Tony's voice sounded as soon as the elevator doors opened. Pepper had no choice but to smile and nod to Bai Xi, then walked directly to the bar. Tony is a person who likes to enjoy. Even the office area has a lot of wine. See her leave. Tony came over immediately, put his arms on Bai Xi's shoulder, and blinked twice. How? Is it spicy? Bai Xi nodded and said, the body is very hot. The character is hotter. Tony smiled and said, unfortunately, this is my person. You have no chance. Bai Xi coughed twice and said, she is an employee of She Stark Group, and I'm also a shareholder. You can't rob me. Tony suddenly wondered, okay, I'll give her to you, but you can't touch other women in the future. Bai Xi opened his mouth deliberately. Tony fell silent for a moment. After a while, he said, then I'll give her to you. The idea of Playboy is that point. How can you give up an entire forest for one tree, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books? Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 27 Hidden Rewards for 12 years. This is naturally a joke. Bai Xi didn't ask Pepper, although he thinks that the freckles on Chili Pepper's face are not against harmony. He does not think it is cute and beautiful. All I can say is, not ugly. He still likes women with clean faces. Looking at Lorna's serious eyes, Bai Xi said frankly. The appearance of Chili Pepper didn't change anything for Tony. Although knowing the future, Bai Xi is sure Little Pepper is Tony's only true love. But now this playboy obviously has no idea of the prodigal son turning back. Just as he thought, why give up the forest because of a tree? Even if Tony thinks Pepper's service is attentive, the assistant does a good job. Every day, you can clean up the garbage left over from the night before, including blowing away women who don't want to go. The Little Pepper is very familiar. Therefore, Bai Xi concluded that Pepper is Tony's true love. I have seen Tony like this, and he is willing to marry Tony and have children. If that's not love, what is? Time passes slowly. The lives of Bai Xi and Lorna have returned to peace. Organizations like SHIELD have given up and never reappeared. And Bai Xi also took Lorna to travel around the world. Because one day, Lorna said she had never left the lighthouse country in her life. So Bai Xi helped her fulfill this wish. Congratulations to the host, who has hidden strength for 11 years and received the reward, Frozen 1000 miles. Frozen 1000 miles. The frost aura released by the host can instantly freeze everything in the body, and the longest distance can reach 1000 miles. Congratulations to the host, who has achieved hidden strength for 12 years and received a reward, the body of a demigod. The body of a demigod, half human and half god, transcendental, but without a godhead. His physical quality has surpassed countless human beings. After Bai Xi received these 2 awards, he immediately felt the change. Especially demigods. He can also be said to be a demigod now. The demigod Bai Xi. The body has been fully strengthened, and it feels like a punch can kill a Kryptonian. Definitely, let's not say whether you can kill Kryptonians, but if you face Jinbing again, you don't need to use other abilities. Just a fist can beat Jinbao to death. Jinbing's strength is not bad. There's even a record of killing Spider-Man. Also, Bai Xi tried it on the coast. He jumped dozens of meters high and then hit the ground heavily. It's a pity it can't fly, isn't it? A demigod. Why can Diana, the Wonder Woman, who is also a demigod, fly, but I can't? This is discrimination. Bai Xi punched in the opposite direction, but unfortunately the system did not respond. He looked at his panel. Host, Bai Xi. Physical, demigod. Items, symbiosis talisman, mantra lasso, fountain of youth, bumblebee. Ability, Batman's fighting ability, teleportation, advanced version, serious punch, hot sight, time travel, frozen 1000 miles, mirror space. In addition to items and abilities, there is one more constitution. Above is a demigod. Definitely, this is just the physique level, not the strength. I just don't know when Bai Xi's body can become a real god, and it is still the level of a god king. Asgard people can live for thousands of years by virtue of their constitution alone. Therefore, the improvement of physique is not just simply getting stronger, but also means the detachment of life. In the past 2 years, Bai Xi took Lorna to many places there. Rich anyway. As a shareholder of She Stark Group, this is the real money to be made while lying down. So you don't have to worry about this or that at all. Bai Xi and Lorna are almost done traveling in Europe. They are going back to the lighthouse country. Those places in Africa, forget it. Now, Bai Xi and Lorna have come to Sokovia. Sokovia, this is a country that does not exist in Bai Xi's world, so it only exists in the Marvel world. This is a small country in Eastern Europe, very barren and full of mountains. It is conceivable that this country cannot develop. It shares a small area with the Czech Republic and Slovakia. Bai Xi didn't want to come here either, but Lorna wanted to come and see. So here comes. However, as soon as he entered Sokovia, Bai Xi felt that he was being watched. He suddenly thought of something. This is actually the home of Hydra. After World War II, the remnants of Hydra established an underground base in Sokovia. Definitely, now they are disguised as SHIELD'(S) agents. It can be said that Bai Xi and Lorna walked into the base camp of Hydra. But Hydra has long experienced the power of the two, so they chose to just observe. Seeing Hydra's interest, Bai Xi didn't bother Lorna either, because Lorna is happy. The view here is beautiful. Lorna walked down the retro street and looked around. The people here are very poor because there are no tall buildings, and when you look around, you can see mountains with high altitudes. It's like trapping the original inhabitants here. These mountains are beautiful. They are all green hills and full of jungles. Definitely, it will inevitably make Sokovia extremely poor. So, Bai Xi and Lorna soon lost interest. I'm going to leave here by plane tomorrow. Go get some local food, Bai Xi said to Lorna. Lorna has become a foodie. Of course she would not refuse. Walking on the street, the two had no goal, so they could only ask someone. Somehow, Lorna saw a little girl and a little boy, apparently twins. So Lorna's mother's love flooded instantly. She pulled Bai Xi over and asked, "Hey, what's your name?" The little girl looked at Lorna and Bai Xi timidly and whispered, "My name is Wanda, and he's my brother, Pietro." Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 28 Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. "Hey, I was born before you," Pietro immediately refused. Wanda didn't argue and just looked at Bai Xi and Lorna. "Wanda, do you know what kind of food is there?" Lorna likes the name very much, so she asks more happily. "Uncle Mark's food is delicious," Wanda and Lorna said. Bai Xi looked at the two little guys and was a little surprised. The two harmless little guys in front of him turned out to be Wanda and Pietro. Scarlet Witch, Quicksilver. Thinking of Scarlet Witch's hot future, Bai Xi's eyes changed when he looked at her, but also normal. Sokovia is so big, it is not surprising to meet these two little guys. Lorna found that Bai Xi had been looking at Wanda and immediately dragged Bai Xi away. "Why do you always stare at other people's little girls?" Lorna asked. In the West, copper smelting is a very sinful thing. But Bai Xi can't say that when he saw Zio Wanda, he thought of Scarlet Witch in the future, right? So he can only say, "It's nothing. Seeing her reminds me of the child in the neighbor's house," Bai Xi said, and did think of Natasha Romanoff and Yelena. Although he didn't know where Yelena was, he knew that Natasha Romanoff had probably joined SHIELD. It's not that Bai Xi didn't want to go to Natasha Romanoff. But after finding it, Natasha Romanoff was so used to being a Black Widow that he would never be able to go back to living in a cottage in Ohio at the time. Therefore, Bai Xi evaded and chose to go with the flow. Although he didn't want to admit it, as time went by, Bai Xi did escape on this matter. As I said at the time, we will meet by fate. Hearing Bai Xi's words, Lorna also began to comfort him. Although Bai Xi didn't tell her much about the past. But know a little. Bit point she knows it too. Point the two little girls at the time were now estimated to be the same age as her in case of sudden appearance. Will Bai Xi be deceived? After all, they came first. Point at this moment, Lana seemed to have become a white scientist. Point. In order to prevent Bai Xi from having any bad thoughts, Lana took Bai Xi and left Sokovia the next day. After a turnaround, I finally returned to the lighthouse country. Point. This is still the case with her historical Stark Group's special plane. Point. When I came back, Tony actually picked up the plane at the airport, which is a very busy man. Point. Also, Bai Xi and Tony haven't seen each other for quite some time. Point. It's just that Tony goes to other places to pack and sell items from the Stark Group and will find time to meet Bai Xi. Seeing Bai Xi come down, Tony immediately gave a big bear hug. "Bai, you're fine," Tony said happily. Bai Xi looked at him suspiciously, cursing him. "Don't you know? Sokovia was attacked not long ago, and now they are planning to send peacekeepers there." Tony Stark began, and there was no other expression on his face. Point. It's normal after all. Point. He's an arms dealer. He was never a benevolent man, but he only noticed when it came to him. Then Wanda and Pietro. At this moment, Lana screamed, "Rest assured, they will be blessed." Bai Xi immediately comforted her, because he is telling the truth. "Who are these two?" Tony looked puzzled. "Two little children, very cute," Bai Xi said with emotion. Tony nodded, still feeling nothing. Bai Xi looked at Tony and couldn't help it. Point. He can still laugh now, but later, he will cry. Point. After all, these people attacked with the weapons of the Stark Group. Point. It's pirated stuff. Point. But young Wanda and Pietro didn't know it. For this, Bai Xi gloated and didn't tell Tony what he thought. Lana didn't look too happy. After all, she just came back from Sokovia. Point. Saw it with my own eyes, and the people were very enthusiastic. Point. A war. How much pain will this bring to the people there? Wanda and Pietro hid in the ruins and shivered. Point. A big guy stood in front of them like this, and the big guy's head was inserted into the ground. Point. From time to time, the sound of artillery fire and explosions, as well as the whistling sound of aircraft flying at low altitudes, can be heard from time to time. Point. Extremely sharp, as if to give birth to a nightmare for the two little guys, and live in a nightmare from then on. Point. And their parents were killed in the attack to protect them. Point. The originally happy family suddenly became fragmented, like a broken mirror, which could no longer be fulfilled. Point. The two weak, pitiful and helpless little guys could only stare at the line of words on the big guy in front of them. History. Stark Group. Unscrupulous arms dealers have their bootlegs stamped with the Stark Group name. Point. Because it can sell for a higher price. Point. In the weapons world, the Stark Group is synonymous with the best. Point. As long as it's from the Stark Group, it's the best, no matter what. If Tony knew that his trademark had been impersonated, he would definitely fly over from Lighthouse Country. Point. As for why is it fake, the reason is very simple. At least the products produced by Bai Xi Stark Group will not fail to explode. In that way, whether there is Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are two different things. After an unknown amount of time, the two siblings were finally rescued from the rubble by Hydra. The people of Hydra want to rule the world, but they are fanatical believers and believe they are doing good. Point. So, it's not as bad as you think. Wanda and Pietro Cheng survived, kneeling for flowers, asking for evaluation tickets, asking for monthly tickets, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 29. Tony. It is recommended to find more girlfriends. Tony, who is far away in the Lighthouse Country, doesn't know this. He is still enthusiastic about making his Jericho cluster bombs, each with individual warheads. The financial strength of the Stark Group continues to rise steadily. Point. This also made Abadia more and more jealous. Abadia wanted to kill Tony immediately. Point. I asked Bai Xi for hints more than once. Point. Too bad. Bai Xi at the moment is in the kitchen. Point. He's preparing Lorna's birthday dinner. Having been with Lorna for so many years, he still doesn't know when Lorna's birthday is, and as a native of Largo, I have never been interested in birthday parties. Bai Xi is the kind of person who's better off not having birthdays. As a result, on a whim, Lana didn't even know when she was born or how old she was. This made Bai Xi a little embarrassed, so she just made today her birthday. Speaking of which, this is the second time for Bai Xi to celebrate someone else's birthday. For the first time, it was the little princess Yelena. In fact, the people of Lighthouse take birthday parties very seriously. But Lana is a special case. She doesn't know when her birthday is, and she has no friends other than Bai Xi. In addition, Bai Xi himself often forgets his birthday, so it became like this. So, Bai Xi made the first birthday party for Lana's life. Birthday parties, of course, are to invite friends. Unfortunately for Lana, Bai Xi is all in her life now. We can only call Tony. She stuck to come and let Tony bring his assistant Pepper. Simple. Oh, it's so shabby. As soon as Tony came in, he saw only Bai Xi and Lana in the room and suddenly shouted strangely, "Bai, do you want me to find some models over here? Some Euro truck or so?" Bai Xi has seen the exaggeration of Tony, the playboy, just the few of us. Today is Lana's birthday. Bai Xi stopped immediately. Lana has a birthday? I thought she was an alien. Tony groaned immediately. It's understandable that Bai Xi, a native of the Dragon Kingdom, doesn't pay attention to birthdays, but Lana is with him. Tony walked to the table with a little Pepper in his arms. The table was filled with dense dishes and red wine. "Wow, did you do this?" Tony asked immediately. "Or is it you?" Bai Xi snorted. Tony immediately sat down with a smile. "You're making a big table for your girlfriend's birthday. I've been wanting to eat for a long time. I suggest you find more girlfriends and celebrate your birthday every day." Tony was joking, and Lana gave him an angry look. But Tony didn't care, and even Pepper patted him. Although he has not given up the forest for little Pepper, the relationship is not normal. Happy birthday. Then, the party of only 4 people began. After a while of celebration, everyone was hungry. "Let's eat." Bai Xi poured some red wine for everyone and then said, on Tony and Chill's plate, "There are knives and forks after all. They can't use chopsticks at first sight." Tony was just joking before, although he always said he was going to eat. But in fact, not everyone likes Chinese food. Many foreigners say it is delicious as soon as they eat it, with a surprised expression. Most of them are deceitful. After all, the code of wealth. Just like Bai Xi eating out, you must be not used to it at first. So, Tony picked up the fork and suddenly didn't know what to do. Some dishes look very spicy. For someone who likes cheeseburgers, it's a bit difficult. Bai Xi also knew their embarrassment, so he cooked a little Cantonese food. "Come and eat this white cut chicken, and this tremella soup, coconut stew chicken." Bai Xi put all Cantonese food in front of Tony and Chili. The dishes didn't look that spicy, so Tony went for it. He was just going to eat a little. After all, he still had to do it. But when you enter, Bai Xi and Lana seemed to light up when they saw Tony's eyes. It's like a person who has been nearsighted for many years using eye drops. One bite. Little Pepper saw that Tony was not talking, so he focused on eating. "Bai, this white cut chicken is so delicious. And this thing, it's called dry fried beef." Tony compliments while eating. This made the little Pepper unable to bear it. After a while, Tony put down his fork and braced. "Seriously, you can think about what I said before. It's not a joke." Tony said seriously. "Then, I'll castrate you first." Lana glared at Tony. Obviously, what he said was to ask Bai Xi to find more girlfriends. Tony suddenly laughed. "I'm going to hire a Chinese chef too. Pepper, make a note." Tony opened his mouth and laughed. "By the way, what kind of dish is this?" "Cantonese cuisine is a type of Chinese cuisine. Cantonese cuisine is the most expensive among the major restaurants in Languo, and the salary of chefs who know Cantonese cuisine is also the highest. But Tony found that none of the chefs he hired were as delicious as Bai Xi's, so he hooked up with Bai Xi. "Every time I come, I think of the smell of home. But unfortunately, Bai Xi doesn't cook very often anymore because it's all covered by Lana. Every time Lana sees Tony coming to eat, she makes it spicy on purpose. This leisurely life makes Bai Xi very comfortable. Time seems to be less important. Ding. I Don't know when. The sound of the system sounded in my mind. Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time. October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 30 Pokémon and the Lord of the Rings. Before I knew it, it was another year accompanied by the ding sound in my mind. Congratulations to the host for hiding his strength for 13 years and getting a reward. Pokeball. Unknown. Pokeball. Press this button and throw it out. There is a mysterious creature in it. Bai Xi looked at the Pokeball in his hand, speechlessly. It gave him a feeling of being back in his childhood. Even Lorna laughed at Bai Xi. Bai Xi doesn't care. Go directly to the lawn, press the Pokeball, and throw it out. Come on, Pikachu, he thought. Then there was a flash of light, and a cute creature appeared in front of him. Cute, but not Pikachu. Pink balls, dark green eyes. Fat Ding. Fat Ding got into his arms directly, and then rubbed it. Wow, so cute. Lorna was instantly melted into her heart. It's so fat. How did it come out of that little thing? Lorna asked immediately. It's called a Pokeball, and Fat Ding is a Pokémon. Fat Ding. What a good name. Lorna rejoiced. So, the Pokémon that Bai Xi just summoned was occupied by Lorna. When eating, Lorna also specially prepared fruit for it. Although what Bai Xi summoned was not Mewtwo, but he felt it was better, just enough to make you happy. As for strength, if a Pokémon needs to be strong, it proves that Bai Xi himself is a weak chicken. The next day, Bai Xi heard Lorna's exclamation. He rushed over to take a look and saw Lorna hurriedly cleaning the ghosts on his face. It turned out that Lorna had to take Fat Ding to bed last night, but she fell asleep listening to Fat Ding singing. The end is naturally very tragic. Fat Ding's ability looks useless, and it's cute. It looks harmless to humans and animals, but it's actually a group control skill. It is a master of hypnotic ability. As long as you hear its song, you will definitely fall asleep, and you will be angry when you fall asleep. Definitely, it's just that Lorna wasn't prepared. After all, in this world of Superman, Fat Ding's singing may not be so good. With the addition of one more family member, the time goes by quickly. Even Abadia always finds Bai Xi. Want to work with Bai Xi. But he didn't say anything about cooperation. Bai Xi naturally knew what the hell he was up to, so he refused every time. Abadia hates Tony to the bone, and Tony is now a good friend of Bai Xi, so naturally he won't join forces with Abadia. Instead, he reminded Tony to be careful every time. Tony nods in agreement every time, but turns away, and forgets. After all, in his opinion, a slightly ambitious Abadia is actually useless. No way. Bai Xi also knew Tony's character. In his opinion, the current Tony is not the Iron Man of the future at all. He's still the playboy. But people can change, and only after experiencing some things can they grow. If it wasn't for the things that made Tony metamorphosis, Tony would probably still be the playboy. When he got old. Therefore, Bai Xi simply stopped talking. Let Tony suffer. He watched Abadia's movements coldly, without any interference. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully hiding his strength for 14 years and getting the reward, the Supreme Lord of the Rings. The Lord of the Rings. Wear it, you will be invisible. Bai Xi looked at the Supreme Lord of the Rings in his hands. The greatest ability of the Lord of the Rings is actually to preserve vitality and will, so that people can live longer. Definitely, it will be influenced by the Demon Lord Sauron. But in this world, how could there be Sauron? Moreover, the most interesting thing is its stealth ability. Fortunately, Bai Xi is a righteous gentleman, but don't let this thing fall into the hands of thieves. Bai Xi looked at his panel. Host, Bai Xi. Physical, demigod. Items, symbiosis talisman, mantra lasso, fountain of youth, bumblebee, elf ball, supreme lord of the rings. Ability, Batman's fighting ability, teleportation, advanced version, serious punch, hot sight, time travel, frozen 1000 miles, mirror space. Before he knew it, there were already a lot of good things about him. Although many things seem to be useless to him now. I just don't know. Now if Thanos came, how many tricks would he have with Bai Xi? An underground base in Schild. Who had wrapped himself up tightly, looked at the huge amounts of quantum colliders in front of him. Why is Spider-Gwen here? because she didn't escape the omnipresent gaze of SHIELD. So she was found, and SHIELD told her that she would be sent back to her own world. And so Gwen, a young girl who didn't know much about the world, was fooled into SHIELD, helped SHIELD do a lot of things, and researched quantum colliders together. She saw the quantum collider, and felt that she could really return to her own world. Nick Fury stood beside her, looked at her with a smile, and told her to go to the center. Gwen stood there obediently, and waited for the collider to start. But SHIELD increased the electric current. This time did not black out the whole city, like Kim did. Then, the collider went into operation. Boom. Gwen closed his eyes from the huge amounts of energy. The entire SHIELD took a step back. But wait until Gwen opens his eyes. She finds herself still at the base of SHIELD, not returning to her own world at all. How is this going? Gwen asked suspiciously. Nick Fury said with a bitter look, "It looks like we failed, and you have to stay here." Gwen had no choice but to agree reluctantly. As everyone knows, Nick Fury has long been smiling. He wouldn't put back such a useful superhero. Don't even think about leaving when you come. But in fact, the quantum collider is not without any impact. Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 31. Invisible Woman. Susan. In the villa area, a figure suddenly appeared. But since she is invisible, no one can see her. Invisible female. Susan looked dazed. She had just acquired ability and suddenly found that she could be invisible, but the clothes on her body would reveal her. So decided, as soon as it was done, she found herself in another world, although she was still in New York. But what does she do now? Where to live? Who to look for? The most important thing is, where do I get the clothes? Just then, Susan saw a green-haired woman passing by. Look at the figure, about the same. It is estimated that the clothes can also be suitable. Just grab one set and go. Susan made a decision and immediately followed. But soon, she found that the green-haired woman in front of her would turn her head back inexplicably. Lana is also weird. She could feel a change in the magnetic field, but when she turned to look, there was nothing. This made her quicken her pace. When she got home, she immediately went to call Bai Xi. And Susan took advantage of this opportunity and rushed upstairs immediately. "I just borrowed a suit. I hope you don't blame me." Invisible. Susan thought. She doesn't dare to lift her ability now, or she will be seen all over. After finally finding clothes, she was embarrassed again. Because these clothes can't be invisible. With her feeling Lorna coming up, Susan could only hurriedly dodge, leaving Lorna's room. Susan was confused again. Then, she saw a man standing in front of her. Susan quickly covered her mouth and almost screamed out in fright. If found, it's over. She knows how charming her beauty is. If someone sees her like this, the only one who can't feel evil about her is a woman. However, Susan was horrified to find that Bai Xi had a magic ring in his hand, and then stretched out his hand towards her. "What?" Susan yelled that she had been found. Because the Lord of the Rings can make people invisible, it is natural to discover this, because Susan's invisibility is changing magnetic fields and light. Lorna can also spot it. Bai Xi and Lorna looked at Susan, who was already dressed, and didn't know what to say for a while. "Who are you?" Lorna asked. "My name is Susan Stone." Susan replied. "What is your job?" "I'm an astronaut." After some inquiries, Bai Xi and Lorna found that this Susan, like the previous Spider-Gwen, was not from this world. "How did you get here?" Bai Xi asked with a frown. "I don't know. I was just about to save people." Susan was also speechless. She herself had just obtained ability, so she didn't know anything about it. Bai Xi and Lorna looked at each other. How to do? Lorna stepped aside and asked Bai Xi. Bai Xi looked at the invisible female Susan and also had a headache. He definitely knew that this was Susan, the invisible woman in the Fantastic Four, but don't know what happened. What will happen if you leave her behind? Look at you. So, Bai Xi kicked to Lorna, let her stay for a while. Lorna finally decided, if she's a bad person, take her. Lorna, with a good heart, explained. She was afraid that this seemingly harmless Susan was actually a badass after all. People can't be seen. Lorna is not uncommon for people like Susan who look harmless, but actually do bad things. Okay. Then. Bai Xi nodded. So, the invisible female Susan was inexplicably left behind. She was reluctant at first, but after tasting the food Lorna had made, she was instantly reluctant. Lorna, what you make is delicious. Nothing. Bai Xi did better. Real. Susan looked at Bai Xi with big eyes. It's not obvious that she is also a foodie. In fact, women are irresistible to food. It's just that some people are able to control their diet with a lot of willpower. Facing Susan's eyes, Bai Xi nodded complacently. Susan is the most in line with the aesthetics of the people of Lango. Soft face, devil figure, and wheat colored skin. It seems like Tony's proposal is also a good one. Seeing his thoughts, Lorna stared at Bai Xi murderously. The cute Pokemon felt murderous and moved to the side. It is also very popular with Susan, although Susan is not less drawn by it as a female ghost. Susan would definitely know that this family is not normal anymore. Neither Bai Xi nor Lorna seem simple. She also accepted it naturally. She will be invisible. What else is unacceptable? If Susan was a man, then definitely go do whatever she wants now. Like the invisible man in the black robed picket team. A total bad thing. But unfortunately, Susan is a woman. Before I knew it, it was 2008. Perhaps it was to welcome this somewhat special year. On this night, Bai Xi and others who were having dinner heard the explosion from the city. Susan was taken aback. Although she has super ability, she is relatively timid. Moreover, I haven't gotten used to it for so long. I just got familiar with my ability. Looks like you won't be able to taste the dinner I made again. Bai Xi laughed. Susan nodded reluctantly. Let's go and see what happened. Bai Xi took the initiative to say, and both Lorna and Susan followed. For some reason, his hands became more and more itchy. I just want to fight people. After all, Bai Xi also wanted to test his own strength and how far he was now. Without a strong opponent, it would definitely not work. Just like a king who plays bronze and silver every day, it is inevitable that he will not integrate into it. Therefore, Bai Xi's strength can only be tested by fighting against the strong point, and he couldn't possibly go to Kamatage to find Ancient One Lanning. There are a lot of manuscripts. I will never be too supervising. Ask for flowers, ask for evaluation tickets, ask for monthly tickets, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 32. Adore Bateman. Boom, boom. With a lot of loud noises, the entire Brooklyn street was almost destroyed. Raw. A huge monster constantly destroying everything on the street. Its body is extremely ugly, and it doesn't look like a human at all. It even lost human consciousness. There is only one thought, and that is to kill the Hulk. It's called Abomination. Emil Bronsky, who was originally just a soldier, but was defeated by the Hulk many times, and even survived by relying on the super soldier serum. Definitely, it's not the kind of serum that the United States Captain Steve had, but the military made it later. But it finally allowed him to survive and gain great power. But this is not a genuine super soldier serum after all. He still can't beat the Hulk. So, after Dr. Banner decided to draw his own blood, Bronsky decided to inject himself. When Hulk blood mixed with super soldier serum. Hatred was born. Bronsky's consciousness naturally disappeared in an instant, and this monster only had the fighting instinct and Bronsky's obsession. Defeat the Hulk, so hate madness to destroy everything, just to force the Hulk out. And the initiator, General Ross, turned green in the face of all this. Bronsky is his soldier. If it weren't for him trying to capture the Hulk like crazy, there would be no such thing at all. Even if his strong background can keep him, it will be difficult for him in the future. It is estimated that he will not be able to stay in the military. Having figured this out, General Ross turned a blind eye to Bruce Banner's heroic actions. Nick Fury looked livid as he watched the abhorrence ravaged in the video. General Ross really caused a catastrophe again. The people in the military are really stupid. Nick Fury cursed, but there was nothing he could do, just to see if Ghost Spider-Man is an opponent. In the video, a figure has appeared floating Ghost Spider-Man Gwen sticks to the wall, watching the abomination that slays the quartet. Small things like assault vehicles were directly smashed into the air by hatred. Unless you go directly to the tank, it's not enough to hate the hammer, but this is New York. It's Brooklyn. How could the tank come over in such a short time? It would be nice to have an assault vehicle. Gwen flew over immediately and rescued a little girl on the street. Then she herself struck at hatred. But as soon as it floated in front of the hatred directly punched him. Boom. Spider-Gwen was hit by a punch and was directly sent flying. Spider telepathy went crazy with the alarm, but she still couldn't escape it. How can such a big man move so fast? Gwen immediately got up from the ground. Fortunately, her physical fitness exceeds that of ordinary people. Otherwise the punch would have been beaten into meat sauce. Just when Gwen had a headache, another roar came. An abomination also turned his head and roared at the other side. Hulk appeared. The invincible Hulk hammers himself like a gorilla, his anthropomorphic features blazing with rage. This guy actually stole his own blood. If it wasn't for the fact that Dr. Banner was always trying to get away from him, how could the abomination be allowed to succeed? So, Hulk ran straight towards the abomination. Hatred naturally rushed towards him as well. Boom. The two big guys wrestled like gladiators, and neither let the other, but over time, the Hulk fell behind. After all, the current Hulk is in a weak period. Dr. Banner had just pumped out so much blood, and the state of Hulk could be imagined. Not afraid of godlike opponents, but afraid of pig-like teammates. It's Dr. Banner. So, Hulk found himself getting beaten all the time. Roar. He cried out unwillingly. Fortunately, Spider-Gwen helped him relieve it. Squeak. Bumblebee made an elegant drift, bringing up a black line on the ground. Then it stopped precisely behind the crowd. There are too many people eating melons in front of them. Unless they hit them all the way, they can only get off. Aren't they afraid of death? Lana couldn't help but complain. Curiosity is human nature, Susan also sighed. They had no choice but to follow Bai Xi out of the car and then drove off the road with Bai Xi pushing all the way to the front. What caught my eye was the battle between the two big men. The Hulk was crushed and beaten all the way by hatred. Ghost Spider-Man. This little Spider-Man doesn't play well in this kind of battle and can only harass on the side. Even if she kicked it with all her strength, the hatred would only hurt a little and then immediately knocked her away. What monster is this? Sure enough, Susan was stunned. With these two big guys, she's going to bang with a punch, right? On the other hand, Bai Xi said to the two women with a little satisfaction, "You stay away." Boom. After finishing speaking, a boulder smashed in front of the crowd, scaring the melon-eating crowd to retreat quickly, bringing up a lot of dust. When the dust cleared, Lana and Susan found that Bai Xi had disappeared. And the battle on the field seems to be over. The Hulk couldn't run away, but when he ran to the top of the building, he was caught by the iron chains and restrained the Hulk's neck. It looks like the invincible Hulk is about to be strangled like this. Spider-Gwen has no choice but to make soy sauce. But at the moment, out of nowhere, a fiery red beam flew over, sizzled. The fiery red beam precisely hit the chain in Abomination's hand. The iron chain was melted by the high temperature in an instant, and it snapped with a pop. Hulk took the opportunity to inhale quickly. Then he kicked the hatred back with an elbow. Gwen looked into the distance, and on the roof, a man covered in black bat armor looked down at all this, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 33. A serious punch. His armor seemed to be integrated into the darkness, and he had a cloak and a bad mask behind him, which looked full of technology. Especially when he flew straight down from above, with the cloak thumping behind him. It looks like a humanoid bat. Who are you, Spider-Gwen? Asked subconsciously. Bai Xi didn't expect her to be so talkative, so he glanced at her with admiration, and said in a low voice, "Love, Bateman. Ah, you also a superhero? What is your super ability?" Gwen continued to ask stupidly. "My super ability is money." An incomparable word. Afterwards, Bai Xi pretended not to look at Gwen. This set of bat armor was made by him in time. It's useless. All the decorations are for looks. After all, He's not Bruce Wayne, and he can't make those good looking and functional gear. I just didn't expect that this bat armor really came in handy. Point at this moment, Nick Fury, who was far away, was stunned. Point looking at this bat armor. He suddenly thought of the bat flying darts. Don't try to hide, it's you. Nick Fury confirmed. Bai Xi didn't really want to hide, he just thought it was fun. Point after all, he just didn't want to reveal his true strength, not to be a tortoise. At the moment, both Abomination and Hulk looked at him. Raw. Abomination was the first to go crazy and charged directly towards Bai Xi. Hulk knew it was for him, so he jumped on a hatred and threw the hatred to the ground. Point the two big guys smashed a hole directly on the ground. Point, but Abomination still swung huge amounts of arms towards Bai Xi. Bai Xi's figure flashed and disappeared. Point when he reappeared, he was already behind Abomination and Hulk. Hot sight. Bai Xi's eyes turned red, and the visor of the bat armor was melted directly by this move. Point fortunately, it was night, and only the nearby Spider-Gwen could see it clearly. Bai Xi almost cried out, then quickly closed her mouth. Ow. The hatred was directly scalded by this scalding. Point that's because it didn't take long, and the heat vision didn't directly melt the hatred. Point plus, Bai Xi wants to try his other abilities. Hulk found this human being so terrifying and was too frightened to shout. Point don't look at Hulk's silly appearance, but he can still tell the situation clearly. Hulk simply shoved the hatred aside. Point naturally, this couldn't hurt the Abomination. It immediately got up from the ground, grabbed the car next to it, and smashed it towards Bai Xi. Humph. Bai Xi sneered, clenched his fist, and slammed it out. Seriously. Punch. His style of painting seems to be sharp in an instant. Definitely, it's just an illusion. Pointing Gwen's eyes. Bai Xi seemed to be handsome when he punched. Boom. This fairly new car was instantly smashed into countless pieces by Bai Xi's serious punch. Bai Xi feels like his fist has an indescribable power that can crush everything in the way. Abomination was dumbfounded. Point then, it saw Bai Xi dodged in front of him. Point teleport. Bai Xi stretched out his hand towards the hatred, and in an instant, all the objects around Bai Xi were frozen. Point Abomination just looked up at Bai Xi, and in less than a second, he turned into an incomparably huge ice sculpture. Point frozen thousands of miles. Bai Xi controlled this ability, and didn't let it spread. Point otherwise, the entire street, most of New York, will be frozen. Point that way, you'll be in trouble for the Sorcerer Supreme Ancient One. At the moment, Ancient One is standing in the holy place of New York, watching everything happening in Brooklyn from a distance. Point with her hands on her back, she could clearly see Bai Xi's face. Point she thought about it carefully. The corner of Ancient One's mouth twitched. It was the young man who looked at her bald head impolitely. It's because of you. After Ancient One finished speaking, he turned around and entered the holy place and returned to Kamatage. Point what happens on Earth, she doesn't care. Point the premise is not to affect the holy place. Point Abominations turned into huge amounts of ice sculptures. This made Hulk want to run over and hammer it. Point, but seeing Bai Xi, Hulk immediately became obedient. Point hands up, looking at the ice sculpture of Abomination. Point cute. Point then, I saw Bai Xi stretch out his fist. Seriously. Punch. Boom. The hatred for these huge amounts of ice sculptures turned into countless powders in an instant and dissipated in the world. Bai Xi killed the hatred in 1 second. Point Abomination can't even do a bit of the ability to resist. Point and yet, Bai Xi has not given his full strength. Point he just released his ability at will. Point how lonely it is to be invincible. Afterwards, Bai Xi came directly to the roof, leaving everyone behind. Point he tilted his head, then spread his wings, and disappeared like a Batman. Point seeing this scene, countless people who eat melon suddenly shouted, "Who is he? Amazing. Is he superhero? He saved the world. Oh, he said his name is Bateman. Super ability is rich. It's so handsome. I want to make a suit for him too." Listening to the clamor of the crowd, Lorna and Susan looked at each other. So, Bai is so strong. Susan was surprised. She couldn't believe her eyes. No wonder it was discovered by Bai Xi. It's not that she is too weak, it's that Bai Xi is too strong. Point in the field, the Hulk reacted and ran away. Point Spider-Gwen also flew away quickly, and Nick Fury's voice sounded in the headset. "Do you know who he is?" "No, I don't know," Gwen said immediately, without revealing Bai Xi's identity. Point, but Nick Fury has long guessed. It's It Bai Xi, do not. Nick Fury put down the phone. Bai Xi's punch flashed over and over again on the screen. At the moment, he only had one thought. How strong is Bai Xi? Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 34 You can. 039. T help yourself, Yelena. This incident caused quite a stir. The monster like Hulk first appeared in the public eye, or in the metropolis of New York. Countless people are watching all this, including the mysterious Batman. He claims that his super ability is rich. At the moment, Tony called Bai Xi angrily. Shiro, do you know that Batman? I see. Bai Xi said casually. He has returned home with Lorna and Susan. Lorna, who was born to love big scenes, was very upset. Because she just watched and didn't do it herself. On the phone, Tony's unhappy voice sounded again. He is so arrogant that he even said that his super ability is rich. Could he be richer than me, Tony Stark? If there is something, he will name his property and I will buy it all in minutes. Tony exclaimed. It turns out that this is what annoys him. Sure enough, the brain circuit is very strange. But Bai Xi is used to it. This is Tony Stark. You can't look at him with the eyes of a normal person. That's not necessarily true. Maybe some people own a country and are not richer than you? Bai Xi said with a smile. Of course he was talking about Black Panther. Wakanda owned by Black Panther is worth more than Tony Stark Group. That doesn't count. Tony immediately said, it's not fair at all. I'm the richest man in the world. Bai Xi didn't tell him much. But Tony himself said very mysteriously, Bai, you just wait. The She Stark Group will be released soon. Before Bai Xi could answer, Tony hung up the phone. Then he stopped the car and entered a bar from behind. In the bar, an old man who was as dry as a candle in the wind was drinking suffocating wine alone. He seemed to have aged several decades in an instant. Immediately from a middle-aged guy, he became an old man. General Ross. Tony wore sunglasses, walked over very arrogantly, and knocked twice on the table in front of him. General Ross turned to look at him. With a smile on his face, Tony pinned his collar and said, maybe we can work together. Cooperation. For what, General? Ross glanced at him and said. The sound startled Tony, like a torn vocal cord. In fact, if General Ross hadn't recognized Tony, he would have been blown away. Now, he seems to be dying of old age immediately. Tony calmed down and said, those big guys don't make sense. Technology can change the future. Tony sat next to General Ross and asked for a drink, so we can work together to sell my product. Tony said with a smile. General Ross suddenly thought, I can sell your stuff to the Middle East. Tony's eyes lit up. Polar bear in a world of ice and snow. Yelena and other agents were called to a secret base in a red house. Then, Yelena met the person she hated the most. Dreekov. Yelena lowered her head and tried her best to hide her killing intent. Then she heard Dreekov say to her, Yelena, this time I will help you eliminate your weaknesses. You, Yelena, raised her head immediately and saw Dreekov smiling. Then, she was suppressed by the two agents behind her. His hands were directly caught, and then he fell to the ground on one knee, and he could only look up at Dreekov. What are you going to do, Yelena? Asked Dreekov like crazy. Do not. Dreekov shook his head very gentlemanly. His burly body bent down to look at Yelena. It's not what I'm going to do, it's what you're going to do, Yelena, Dreekov said with a smile. You will kill your weakness with your own hands and then dig out his heart. Do not, Yelena said tremblingly. I won't do this. I'd rather die. Unfortunately, you can't help yourself, Yelena. Dreekov is like the devil. You already belong to me completely. You are all my Black Widow. Afterwards, Yelena was knocked unconscious and she was taken away. Since Natasha Romanoff's defection, Dreekov has been looking for a waypoint, a real way to control these Black Widows. Otherwise, if he cultivates one, he will be poached, not making wedding clothes for others. After the unremitting efforts of the Red House, a breakthrough has finally been achieved. Pheromones, the emergence of brain control methods. made these Black Widows completely under his control. There will never be another existence like Natasha Romanoff. A subordinate asked. Let Yelena kill him now. Do not. Dreykov shook his head. Experiment first, or she may still defect. Also, I want her to know clearly that she killed herself, but she is powerless to resist. That must be interesting. Hearing this, that man trembled a little. In fact, there are many agents who want to kill Dreykov. After all, being cultivated under such circumstances, few people will have feelings for the Red House. Natasha Romanoff wasn't the only one defecting. In order to prevent himself from dying inexplicably in his sleep, Dreykov developed this method. As long as they smell his breath, these people can't do anything to him. He wants these Black Widows to be controlled from body to mind. This is the empire he wants to build, the perfect goal he was after from beginning to end. He just thought that Bai Xi was an ant that could be crushed to death. Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time October 1st to October 7th. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 35 Bai Xi and -039. Weakness found. Bai Xi quickly knew what Tony meant. He is going to the Middle East to personally demonstrate the equipment of the History Stark group. When he heard the news, Bai Xi knew that everything was about to begin. The gorgeous transformation of Tony, the playboy, is about to begin. So instead of admonishing Tony, he just said, I hope you're happy. That will definitely be very happy. I heard that the beauties there are very special. Tony laughed so hard that Susan and Lorna wanted to punch him. Susan didn't understand why a serious person like Bai Xi would be friends with a playboy like Tony Stark. Bai Xi is really serious. Before he knew it, he had 2 girlfriends living at home. Tony continued, it's better for you to be nice to me, and that old man Abadia just pretends to care about me. Bai Xi rolled his eyes immediately. Abadia definitely doesn't care about you. He wants you to die. Tony, do you think Batman is handsome? Bai Xi asked. Do not. Tony immediately said, I'm the most handsome. Ha ha ha. Both Lorna and Susan laughed. They all know that Batman is played by Bai Xi. So happy to hear Tony say that. It's not that they haven't been curious about how strong Bai Xi is, but every time, Bai Xi just raised his thumb and forefinger, expressing that he was only a little stronger. I mean, do you think your current weapon can defeat that big monster? Bai Xi sneered suddenly. Tony was silent for a moment. That kind of monster is not terrible, as long as helping is fine. Definitely, you are right. I think when I return from the Middle East, I will further upgrade the equipment of the Stark group. Tony immediately said happily, I have already thought about the AdWords. Do you want to solve the monster? One shot is enough. You are so hot. Bai Xi immediately laughed. That's inevitable. Tony smiled smugly. Bai, you see I'm leaving. Don't you treat me with 17 or 18 dishes. The word reward, you didn't use it like that. Bai Xi immediately replied, let's talk about those 2 words when you come back. No, who knows how long I'll be there. Tony was determined not to leave. Bai Xi couldn't help it. He couldn't throw Tony out. So I had to do it myself and brought 2 Cantonese dishes to Tony, and the rest were all Lorna and Susan liked. Susan's taste doesn't like spicy either, but it's not the same as Tony's. Tony didn't care either. Instead he was amazed. It's still delicious, and it feels like coming home. Go away. You just want a blank ticket. Bai Xi said angrily. Haha, you're right. Tony laughed. You're not short of money anyway. Lorna noticed that Susan suddenly felt a little lost after Tony finished speaking. Maybe homesick? Lorna gave Bai Xi a look, but Bai Xi couldn't help it. He couldn't send Susan back either in this case. Only food can capture Susan. Bai Xi is quite good at this kind of situation. Back then, I won 2 little guys with good food, and then Lorna, he believed that Susan was no exception. What flavor you want to eat? Chinese food actually has it. Moreover, with Bai Xi's current technology, it is possible to combine the East and the West. When Tony was full, he said, "Will you send me the day I go?" He asked Bai Xi. "You're not a woman, so I won't send it," Bai Xi said speechlessly. Tony burst out laughing and ran outside as he spoke. "Did the two ladies hear that? As long as I'm a woman, he'll send it, so be careful." Tony was like a rabbit and disappeared in a flashpoint. Then Bai Xi will face Lorna and Susan's different eyes. Susan seems a little dodge. Next, Bai Xi began to think about Susan's taste. To conquer a woman's heart, first conquer her stomach. This is the eternal truth. When her stomach can't leave you, how can she leave? Looking at Lorna now, it is estimated that Bai Xi can't even kick her away. So, when the time comes, Susan will not want to go back. Bai Xi is just to help her relieve the pain of missing, and she has absolutely no other thoughts. Meanwhile, Nick Fury thinks he has discovered Bai Xi's weakness. Nick Fury looked at Bai Xi's photo and touched his bald head. Why? Has it been more than 10 years? He still hasn't changed. He was so jealous. Definitely, that's not what he's thinking about this time. He was looking at the two women beside Bai Xi. Lorna, Susan. These two women are top-notch beauties, and he believes that there is no man in this world who cannot be tempted. So, Nick Fury knew Bai Xi's weakness, woman. Looking at Bai Xi's experience over the years, he found it. At first he thought Bai Xi was a lover. After all, Lorna had been with him for 10 years, until he found out that there was another beautiful woman beside Bai Xi recently. Susan. Therefore, he believed that Bai Xi's weakness must be beauty. There is a saying, which Carter can withstand such a test, and looking at SHIELD, there are actually many beauties. Sadly, Natasha Romanoff doesn't work for him. The others seem to be a little worse. Nick Fury set his sights on the capable deputy chief in front of him. Mariah Hill. Also a good candidate, if needed. Perhaps sensing the gaze, Mariah Hill looked at him suspiciously. Nick Fury smiled, then lowered his head. I have a file in my hand. The Avengers program. Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 36 hidden for 15 years. Purple gift bag. Yelena's condition is stable and there is no sign of resistance. Dreykov watched Yelena meticulously complete the assassination mission in the video. There is an assistant's report in the air. Dreykov's eyes were the same, and he continued to ask, "What about the other Black Widow?" "Most of them resisted," the assistant said cautiously. "Do you think our best Black Widow will have less willpower than those rotten fish and rotten shrimps?" Dreykov looked at Yelena's sharp movements and asked coldly. The cold sweat of the assistant fell instantly. Dreykov sneered. "Give her a high dose. That would be majestic. It could be deadly. Then let her die." Dreykov was unmoved. "Black Widow is only if one dies, the next one can be cultivated. All you need is to be obedient," he said and looked at his assistant with deep meaning. The assistant nodded immediately and left, cold sweat dripping down his neck into his clothes. Dreykov is a lunatic and doesn't take anyone seriously. In his eyes, there are only available and unavailable. As if facing not people, but tools. Yelena didn't know what tragic future she would usher in. Because it's totally unpredictable. Even if she knew there were other people doing the experiment, she didn't know how the others would react. As Bai Xi said, he wasn't there when Tony went to the Middle East. Fortunately, Tony didn't care. After all, his assistant, Pepper, was their. Rather than asking for a man to send it, he might as well ask for a woman. Moreover, he had already prepared several flight attendants on the plane, all of them of various races. After a video call with a Badia, Tony got on the plane neatly, ready to enjoy. In his view, this trip is to enjoy and pretend. And then I made money along the way. Since he took over the History Start group, nothing has been difficult for him. That's Tony's confidence. As everyone knows, the disintegration of fortresses often comes from within. It is hard to guard against thieves when someone close is about to backstab you. You simply can't stop it. At the moment, Abadia, who hung up the video, immediately contacted the organization in the Middle East, the 10 Rings gang. He also didn't expect Tony to want to go to the Middle East. It's just that God is helping him. So Abadia directly practiced the organization there and paid for Tony's head. This is also the reason why there is no agreement. Because time is too short and the Ten Rings gang, in fact, has a long history. So what they want is not money at all, but the knowledge in Tony's head. At the moment, Tony had no idea that Abadia had sold him out. Holding champagne in his hand, he admired the dance of flight attendants from all over the world, which was simply a human enjoyment. Calling Bai Xi to come and still not agreeing is a big loss. Does the house flower smell like wildflowers? This sentence has some truth, because Bai Xi has a headache when facing family flowers, because Susan looked a little weird. She didn't seem to have a particular favorite flavor. Whatever Bai Xi and Lorna eat, she eats it. Perfect interpretation of what is not picky eaters. So Bai Xi's food strategy is going to fail. But on the second day, when Susan got used to eating the food made by Bai Xi and then had the breakfast prepared by Lorna, she suddenly felt bad. It's not that Lorna can't do it, but the gap is a bit big. Both belong to the two categories of barely edible and extremely delicious. This made Lorna look devastated. Emotions are written on the face. The baby is not happy. As a result, Lorna locked herself in the kitchen crackling. But she uses her own ability, although it is convenient, but the taste will decrease. So, while the process is a little different, the result is the same. Susan has also been captured by food. Who can refuse dry rice? Ding. Just when Bai Xi was complacent, he suddenly realized that another year had come. Hidden systems are rather scary. Usually it doesn't show up at all. It just scares you suddenly when you're not expecting it. He found the beep to be more scary than not at all. And now, Bai Xi has been here for 15 years. It is now 2008. 15 years since Bai Xi came to this world. So, another hidden gift package. Congratulations to the host's hidden strength for 15 years. This is the third hidden gift package. The longer you hide your strength, the more rewards you get. The host should keep working hard. Bai Xi came all the way to the pool, sat on a chair, and basked in the sun. Lorna and Susan are splashing in the pool. Although he has heat vision, he rarely comes out to bask in the sun except for the first time. Because he thinks he will lose a lot. If he has the physique of a Kryptonian, he will definitely stay under the sun every day and even go to the sun to take a bath. But now, isn't it a loss to bask in the sun every day with only a hot site? But Westerners think differently. She'll even think you're scolding her if you tell her you're so white. Therefore, many rich people deliberately tan themselves a little, which seems to be a healthy color. It was Susan's skin tone. Bai Xi was lying on the bench, and a purple gift bag appeared in front of him. It was gold at first, then it became purple gold, and now it turned into pure purple. As the hiding system says, the longer you hide, the better the rewards you get. The old people often say that the purple air comes from the east, and purple is also considered to be the most noble color. So, what color comes after purple? Is it green? Bai Xi didn't think so much, looked at Lorna with green hair, and chose to open the hidden gift package directly. Ding. The host opens the spree. In an instant, a cloud of purple air enveloped Bai Xi directly from the gift bag. Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 37. The Dimension of No Owner. Dimension Mephisto. Purple air appeared in the sky, attracting the attention of Lorna and Susan. They keenly discovered that this cloud of purple energy seemed to be attracted by Bai Xi. Looking at each other, they both felt itchy. Even after so long with Bai Xi. To Lorna, he remains a mystery. Lorna never wants to unravel this mystery. Bai Xi, on the other hand, unveiled the gift package in front of him. What is this? Bai Xi looked at a small black hole that appeared in his hand. It was in the palm of the hand at first, and then slowly moved to the back of the hand, gradually turning into a rune mark. It scared me to death. I thought it was Maitreya Magician's wind cave in Asha. Bai Xi thought to himself. Fortunately it wasn't that thing. Otherwise, you will show your age. At this time, everything about it appeared in front of him. Congratulations to the host for getting the reward. Dimensional mark. Dimensional imprint, leading to an unknown dimension. If you get this dimension, it will become the Dimension Mephisto. Dimension Mephisto. What is Dimension Mephisto? To name a few, Dormammu in the Dark Dimension, Satorak in the Crimson Universe, are all dimensional Mephisto point. Because they control a complete dimension, the strength reaches the multi-universe level point, and the strength between the dimensions Mephisto is also very different point. For example, Satorak, his strength is stronger than the invincible Uncle Planet Devourer. And also stronger than Mephisto's on point the same dimension Mephisto. Dormammu was crushed by him point. Even Kamataj has a spell called Crimson Chains of Satorak that draws on his powers mastering a dimension as Dimension Mephisto. The strength of definitely depends on the file size of the dimension point. This is why Dormammu goes to great lengths to allow the dark dimension to devour other dimensions. The bigger and more special the dimension is, the stronger the dimension Mephisto is. Now, Bai Xi also has a chance to make him a dimensional Mephisto. Bai Xi was a little moved, but also a little scared. If I become a dimensional Mephisto, will I become like Dormammu? After all, he was only most familiar with Dormammu point, and Dormammu's appearance is still very scary point. If he becomes the dimensional Mephisto, but turns into Dormammu, that's not a big loss. So many beautiful girls are still waiting for him. Don't worry, host. No, Dormammu's body is a powerful magician, but he got lost in the power and voluntarily gave up the human body. Understood? As long as I don't kill myself, I won't become like Dormammu. Bai Xi suddenly made a decision point. Dimension Mephisto are point. If he really masters a dimension, his strength will definitely be greatly improved point. Maybe it will become a multi-universe level powerhouse point like Dormammu. In his dark dimension, few can beat him point. Heart is worse than action point, and Bai Xi has always been an activist point. So he said to Lorna and Susan, who were still swimming, "I'll go out." "When are you coming back?" Lorna asked, shaking her hair full of water droplets, but no response point. Looking back, there was no one on the bench, not even a shadow was left. "He has gone," Susan said. Lorna and Susan could only stare at each other. A dim and boundless dimension. Here seems to be an endless kingdom of death, and you can't see the edge at a glance point. The ground here is black, and there are cracks everywhere point. There was no one here, not even a living being point. There seems to be a depressing breath that makes people want to erase their life immediately. Bai Xi stood on a high ground, the mark on his hand glowing dimly from time to time. Is this the mysterious dimensionless dimension? If it wasn't for sure that it was unowned, he would suspect that he was in the dark world of Dormammu. Bai Xi closed his eyes and sensed 9 realms, Earth. He suddenly opened his eyes. This dimension is not far from the 9 realms. Just then, a voice sounded behind him. "You seem to have come to the wrong place, lost little lamb." This voice is indifferent, with a disregard for life, but it can make people hear her royal sister's voice point. "Anyone here? Isn't it an ownerless dimension?" Question mark. Bai Xi suddenly turned his head point. A maniac with disheveled hair and dark makeup was behind him, his eyes looking at her with murderous intent point. Looking at this look, you know that she is a god of killing, and she must have killed countless people in the past point. Even though she is extremely depressed now, her clothes are full of holes, and her hair is messy, as if she hadn't taken a bath for thousands of years. "Hela Odinson?" Bai Xi looked at the person in front of him and asked softly. Hela's eyes flashed suddenly. She looked at Bai Xi and said, "You actually know my name. That old guy Odin hasn't erased my traces yet." There was hatred in her eyes. When it came to Odin point, thousands of years, she has been trapped in this place for at least 3,000 years. No one could talk to her, making her almost crazy point. Finish is the goddess of death, and she rules the kingdom of the dead point, so she kept the hatred until now. Do not. Bai Xi shook his head and said expressionlessly, "No one in Asgard knows that there is a goddess of death. Only Thor." Odin dressed himself up as a holy monarch, forgetting his previous battles in the 9 realms. Bai Xi spoke word by word, as if he was stabbed with a knife in Hela's heart point. This made Hela's eyes turn red, and the killing intent almost condensed into substance. "Shameless old thing Odin, without me." Hela charging him. "Why would he rule the 9 realms?" Hela roared, looking like he was going to strike Bai Xi at any moment point. The current Hela is a lunatic point. Suddenly, Hela stared at Bai Xi and asked, "So, who are you?" "Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books." charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 38 Hela, Kill Me or Conquer Me. Beneath the dark clouds, Bai Xi and Hela stared at each other face to face, point facing Hela's questioning. Bai Xi replied, I'm a man of justice, so I don't want to see Odin cover up so hypocritically. Ah. Hela smiled suddenly. You just happen to know something. Hela saw through the essence of Bai Xi at a glance, and I don't need anyone to sympathize with me. Not anyone. After Hela finished speaking, the night sky sword appeared in both hands and stabbed directly at Bai Xi. The movements were extremely coherent, and an after image appeared. Even after being imprisoned in this dimension by Odin for thousands of years, the power constantly regresses, but the goddess of death is still the goddess of death. She ravaged the 9 realms and killed countless enemies. It's a pity that Bai Xi disappeared directly. Hela sensed his breath and turned back directly. Hela tilted her head and sneered, do you want this dimension? Seeing Bai Xi's strength, she immediately knew his purpose. Bai Xi didn't hide it. A gentleman was magnanimous. He nodded and said, I thought this was a dimension without a master. It's really unowned, but if you want to get it, there are only 2 options. Hela laughed cruelly when she heard the words. What choice? Bai Xi looked at the crazy Hela and asked, kill me. Hela said in a soft tone, then suddenly heavier, or conquer me. The key to becoming dimensional Mephisto is Hela. The system is a fool. Bai Xi thought to himself. Hela rushed up again. Bai Xi immediately moved to dodge. Hela shouted like a madman, it can't kill me, let alone conquer me. She is like someone who longs to be conquered and is now playing a game of slaughter with Bai Xi. Can only say if you stay alone for a long time, you can really go crazy. So Bai Xi did not hide. Since Hela wants to play, let's play with her. He quickly dodged Hela's thrusts, but Hela was a master swordsman. Hela's strength was the best in the 9 realms. Odin sent the Valkyrie Legion to hunt her down, but the whole army was destroyed. So Hela hit Bai Xi easily. The night sky sword was her exclusive weapon. Even Mjolnir dismissed it at the time. Directly into the meat. But when the night sky sword touched the bone, it couldn't cut it. Bai Xi is a demigod after all. Interesting. Hela smiled grimly. But just as she was about to move on, she saw Bai Xi blowing towards her hand, definitely not flirting. Instead, an air of ice blew out. Frozen thousands of miles. Bai Xi used it like a frost breath, and Hela's hand and night sky sword instantly turned into ice sculptures. Then Bai Xi also smiled at her, and Hela was shocked by her frozen hands. The ice cubes shattered. The hands even had flames burning. Don't you know that I'm still a magician? Hela said wickedly. She is an Asgard and the daughter of Odin. Magic is naturally a very simple thing for her. The magic of Odin and the goddess Frigga is top notch. Maybe it's only Thor who is stupid, who can't learn magic. Even Loki's magic level is not low. Hela's body exploded directly, knocking Bai Xi back more than 10 meters. Then Hela spread her hands directly. Her night sky sword became countless in an instant. Unlimited swordsmanship. Whoosh, whoosh, in an instant, all the night sky swords flew towards Bai Xi, as if to tie him into a quill. Bai Xi still didn't use teleportation to dodge. Instead, a thick ice wall appeared directly in front of him. Still frozen for thousands of miles. He found that the usage of this skill is not single, it just depends on his imagination. After all, even the air can freeze. Bang, bang, bang. The unlimited sword system was submerged in the ice wall, and the ice wall was breached before it persisted for a long time. However, just when Bai Xi was about to be hit, he snapped his fingers back in time. Time began to rewind, and directly back to the moment when Hela was frozen. Then at sight, Hela couldn't resist the hot gaze on her face, and her head was pierced. The body fell directly to the ground, as if it were all over. But Bai Xi found that Hela's body had disappeared. You can actually control the time. Your strength is not bad. Just then, Hela's voice appeared behind him. Bai Xi immediately turned around and said, I'm only a little bit stronger than you. Humph. The goddess of death. Hela snorted and gritted her teeth. If I were in Asgard, you would have already lost. But you were banished from Asgard. Bai Xi said with a smile. It doesn't matter. Anyway, here, you can't kill me, and no one will die. Hela laughed suddenly. So, there's only one way left for you, little lamb. That's conquering me. What does Tony Stark's disappearance have to do with us? Lana sat on the sofa with her legs crossed, looking wildly and uninhibitedly at the person in front of her. Mariah Hill was a little helpless. This woman seemed to hate seeing her, but she clearly came to find Bai Xi. But Bai Xi was not there. We need Mr. Bai Xi's help to find She Stark together. Mariah Hill had to explain. However, Lana, who was wearing punk makeup, rolled her eyes and was obviously discovered by her, and he said, Bai Xi has something to do. When he goes out, come back. Where? Do not know. Then I have reason to suspect that it is She Stark who was kidnapped by Bai Xi. Mariah Hill was deliberately mad at Lana. Lana stared at her with a pair of eyes and said slowly, what did you say? Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 39. Nodding can only leave if he dies. Mariah Hill was kicked out by Lana in a daze. She looked at the villa behind her and called Nick Fury angrily. Bai Xi is not here at all. Don't look for me next time. Nick Fury coughed twice in embarrassment. The beauty plan failed before seeing anyone. Kind of embarrassing. Mariah, you are an agent. Nick Fury emphasized. Mariah Hill finally calmed down. He doesn't know where he went. Could he? She opened her mouth and said, although she herself did not believe it. Nick Fury said decisively, you think he needs to go to the trouble of kidnapping Tony Stark? The Bai Xi scene came to Nick Fury's mind. He can guarantee that Bai Xi's strength is definitely not weaker than that of Captain Marvel. Carol. Carol is the same, flying in the sky, tearing spaceships with one hand, almost omnipotent. Bai Xi and Hela, the goddess of death, confronted each other, and neither could do anything to the other. As Hela said, he can't kill Hela here. Kill her once, and she will be resurrected once. And Hela is still enjoying it, asking Bai Xi to kill her a few more times, because normal damage has no effect on Hela. With Asgard's physique, it will recover in an instant. Even in this situation, Hela went crazy and called him darling. Like now, dear, you quickly conquer me, or kill me a few more times. Hela put her head close. She did not expect that the first person she had seen in thousands of years would be so strong. Therefore, the tyranny in her heart made her want to fight all the time. She wanted to kill, or be killed. Bai Xi looked at Hela, not knowing what to do. Hela doesn't know why, can't kill at all. If you don't kill me, you will die when I get out of here. Hela said to Bai Xi with a smile, suddenly becoming extremely calm. Only in Asgard, my strength is at its peak, and then I will kill you with my own hands. Bai Xi immediately grabbed her chin with his right hand. Pulling her head closer, he said, you are not my opponent here, nor in Asgard. You can only be defeated and conquered by me, but you can't conquer me. Hela laughed. She opened Bai Xi's hand, then turned around and took a few steps. Bai Xi finally knew why Odin had directly suppressed Hela for so long. Simply incomprehensible. Hela continued, Odin gave me the keys to the dimension and wanted me to give up the throne of Asgard and become a dimension Mephisto, but I just don't let him get his wish. Ha ha ha. Bai Xi frowned. It turned out that this dimension was deliberately left to Hela by Odin, so he kept her here. But Hela obviously won't accept Odin's arrangement. She is the goddess of death. Everything Asgard should have belonged to her, but now Odin has his own share of the victory. Honey, if you want to get out of here, there are only two ways. Then Hela came up again. You become the master of this dimension, or Odin is dead. Ha 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 ha. This lunatic. Bai Xi cursed angrily. When he succeeds, Hela must be locked up for 10,000 years. So he pulled out the mantra noose and pulled Hela back directly. What Hela said turned out to be true. Dang. Dang. The sound of hammering iron came from the cave, and Tony Stark hammered the steel relentlessly. He has an extra nuclear reactor in his heart, which can keep him barely alive. Otherwise, the fragments that submerged in his body would kill him in an instant. There are some drawings next to the table. It was the mecha picture he showed off to Bai Xi back then. Unexpectedly, this thing really came in handy. The only way to save him now is to rub the mecha with his hands. Ethan, who saved his life, worked hard to help him. Tony watched Ethan make a promise in his heart. If we go out successfully, it will definitely make you live well and stop suffering. And the same for your family. Dang. Dang. Knock. And knock. Tony suddenly thought of Bai Xi. Have fun. Tony looks at what he's tapping and swears he's never been so hard and serious in his life. Not fun at all. I just don't know that he is missing. Will Bai Xi find him? Sure. He's Tony Stark and he's missing. Stark's stock must have plummeted. This guy will look for him everywhere for money. Tony thought bitterly in his heart that he must let Bai Xi cook 17 or 8 dishes to comfort his wounded heart. Unfortunately, Bai Xi didn't take Tony's business to heart at all. He was hanging hella with all his tricks, but as Tony thought, there were indeed many people looking for him. Even SHIELD is anxious after all. Tony is the son of Howard Stark, one of the founders of SHIELD. In addition, his original identity was unusual. SHIELD was naturally anxious. That's why Nick Fury thought of asking Bai Xi to come out. It's a pity that God is not there, and I don't know where to go. There is no other way but to search with carpet coverage. Countless helicopters were flying in the desert, and the bases of many organizations were destroyed. But without exception, Tony Stark was not found. Not even the body. For someone like Tony, the Lighthouse Kingdom naturally wants to see people in life and corpses in death. So the man and went on for weeks without stopping. If Tony Stark dies, they will lose the Beacon Country. At this time, Tony was finally ready to make his own Mark 1 mech. The appearance of this huge, bloated and ugly mecha made him feel so at ease. Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time. October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 40 Dimension Mephisto. Bai Xi. Bai Xi didn't know how many times he killed Hela. The way of death is not the same. This is also taking advantage of Hela's weak strength to bully her in a daze. Hela appeared directly in front of him and then suddenly threw him down. This scene has happened more than once. Then Hela grabbed his head and buried it. After a while. When Bai Xi pushed Hela away, his mouth was full of blood. What a lunatic. But that's it. Hela looked at him differently. Gradually, both Bai Xi and Hela lay on a rock, looking at the extremely dark sky. Bai Xi was tired of killing. It also made Hela seem even more abnormal. Hela's hand suddenly came and grabbed his. When I become the king of Asgard, I will make you my queen. Ha ha ha. Hela laughed wildly. You will be the #1 male pet in the 9 realms in the future. Are you happy? It's also me who wants to be a god king. Asgard people are all waste. Bai Xi also retorted disdainfully. He really didn't think Asgard people could do it. In addition to the ability advantage, other places are lacking. Especially Odin. The ability to cultivate offspring is terrible. One is worse than the other. The eldest daughter, Hela, was raised by him to be a lunatic. Thor, on the other hand, was trained to be a reckless man. Bai Xi felt speechless just thinking about it. Duh. You say that? Sure. Enough. Hela went crazy after hearing it. While hitting Bai Xi, she wanted to kiss him again. After a long time, she asked, do you want to leave here? Bai Xi glanced at her. You are talking nonsense. I don't want to stay with you lunatic anymore. Bai Xi's heart was beating wildly. He could sense that Hela was serious. Well, you just have to promise me one thing. Hela has recognized Bai Xi's strength and said to Bai Xi, what's the matter? Bai Xi vaguely guessed something. Kill Odin with me. Hela said solemnly and expressionlessly. Sure enough, no matter what, she would never forget her hatred for Odin. If it wasn't for Odin, she wouldn't be here at all. Although, in Bai Xi's opinion, Odin still has a sympathy. He arranged a path for Hela to become the Dimension Mephisto. Sadly, Hela didn't want that. She still wants to be the god king of Asgard, so she has been suppressed to this day. But at least Odin didn't kill her outright. Did he? With the current strength of Odin, no matter how strong Hela is, he will be killed by Odin. Asgard people are stronger the longer they live. But the tiger venom didn't eat the seeds, so Hela survived. Bai Xi agreed without hesitation. I promise Odin will die. He definitely used words. Hela didn't say that word games couldn't be used. And it was smooth and successful. Hela has been alone for so long, and the ability to think seems to have declined. Hearing Bai Xi's arrogant words, He immediately clapped his hands with him. Then I took out the dimension key. Integrate it, and you can become the master of this dimension. Hela said without any hesitation. She hadn't even thought about taking this step. Otherwise, she would have become the dimension Mephisto and left here. But she chose to endure endless loneliness just to go out and reclaim what belongs to her. I have to say, Hela is still very sad. How long? Look at yourself. It usually takes many years. Hela said with an expressionless face. Then I saw Bai Xi took it, and in just an instant, the dimension key was sucked into Bai Xi's right hand. The dimensional sky begins to change. Dark clouds began to roll, and the terrain began to change. Gradually, the dark clouds condensed into a human face in the air. Bai Xi closed his eyes and immediately knew the function of this dimension. This is a dimension that governs life and death. Here, in addition to the master of the dimension who controls the life and death of others at will, it is difficult for others to want to die. This is also the reason why Hela can't be killed. It is estimated that she has committed suicide. Odin really tormented her. In Bai Xi's view, this dimension is a good place to torture people. No matter how tortured you are, you won't really die. Again and again. Even Hela, the goddess of death, is almost crazy. Bai Xi opened his eyes and saw Hela looking at him expectantly. When do we start? Hela asked murderously. Wait for me to make a strict plan. Believe me, it won't be too long. You have waited for 3,000 years. Bai Xi opened his mouth and whispered. Hela also felt right for a while, nodding incessantly. She knew how strong Odin was. Really need a plan. Otherwise, go directly to the door. There is a high probability that she and Bai Xi will be suppressed together. Odin is here. At this moment, Bai Xi's expression changed, and he immediately said, I'll leave first. Without waiting for Hela to say anything, Bai Xi disappeared from his sight. She also turned black, but soon she saw the projection of a person into the dimension. Odin can be described as fully armed, but even so, he does not dare to break into the dimension easily. Within dimensions, Dimension Mephisto is almost invincible. Odin at the moment in the destroyer armor, the spear of eternity, and the 8-legged Spider-Versus, it can be seen that he is still wary of Hela. Definitely, and also has a copy from the unfamiliar Dimension Mephisto. After he sensed that the aura of Dimension Mephisto was not Hela's, but an unfamiliar aura, he was so angry. So, Odin killed him directly. Hela Odinson, the one-eyed Odin was so angry that his beard grew. You really let me down. Then come in and kill me. Hela looked at Odin disdainfully and shouted. Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 41 HELAN-039. Est real strength. God help those who help themselves. What Hela didn't know was that if Odin did rush in, he would actually be beaten by Odin. Because Bai Xi has already left, he doesn't care about the mess between their father and daughter, but Hela didn't know it. Odin didn't know either, so he only dared to stay outside the dimension. Who did you give the dimension key to? Odin questioned Hela and wanted to go in and stab Hela to death. Did you think I would tell you? Hela asked with disheveled hair. You just die in Asgard, old man. Hela's voice stimulated Odin to directly raise the Spear of Eternity in his hand and throw it towards her. The Spear of Eternity has a familiarity, that is, throwing it out is guaranteed to hit. Therefore, this spear directly broke through the dimension and stabbed towards Hela. Hela's expression remained unchanged, and a cloud of dark green magical energy came out of her. Boom. In her right hand, she directly held the Spear of Eternity that was going to pierce her heart. The Spear of Eternity is constantly shivering, but it just doesn't get any better. The strength she shows now is much stronger than she faced Bai Xi before. It's a pity that Hela can't crush the Spear of Eternity. Hela can only be thrown away. Then the Spear of Eternity flew straight back into Odin's hands. Odin's face turned as hen. But he still did not enter the dimension after all. As long as you, Hela, dare to take a step out of dimension while I'm alive, I will kill you. Odin put down a harsh word, looking genuinely angry. But Hela wasn't frightened. Then, see who died. Hela opened her hands, palms facing Odin. She raised her head proudly, never bowing to Odin for thousands of years. Bai Xi stood by the pool. This is where he left. He closed his eyes and sensed the power of the dimension. Dimension Mephisto is basically invincible in the dimension, and it can also use its power outside. Even others can use it. Like the Ancient One, always stealing the power of the dark dimension. Definitely, this dimension is too small, just relying on the power of the dimension. Bai Xi can't reach the level of Dormammu. Bai Xi opened his eyes and felt someone beside him, but he couldn't see it. Susan? Bai Xi saw Susan's footprints on the ground. It's me. I'll go first. After Susan answered, she ran away in stealth. Bai Xi thought about it for a moment, and his face immediately turned weird. Susan still has this hobby. When the head of the family returned, Lorna and Susan seemed to have found the backbone. Lorna even prepared delicious food for Bai Xi. After being despised by Susan, her cooking has improved a lot. But Lorna, you put too much oil. Bai Xi complained while eating. If it is an ordinary person, Lorna is really lethal to put so much. Susan nodded in agreement. Obviously she had been abused a lot these days. Cough. But I have no taste after eating it. Lorna said suddenly. By the way, Tony Stark is missing. Lorna felt that she should tell Bai Xi, so she said, I see. Bai Xi nodded. Aren't you going to save him? Lorna was surprised. Does she feel that Bai Xi and Tony are not good brothers with similar smells? The kind that can't walk when she sees a beautiful woman. The result. That's it. What a superficial brother. Lorna, you haven't heard a word. God help those who help themselves. Bai Xi coughed twice and said. He sensed Tony's breath, and teleportation could record the breath of others. Tony's not dead. That's fine. Hey, we'll wait for him at the airport in 2 days. If Tony knew that the good brother he was waiting for didn't mean to save him at all, he would probably be hit hard again. At the moment, he has entered the Mark 1 armor and has already killed halfway. Then he saw Ethan, who was dying. It has to be said that Ethan was a turning point in Tony's life. Here in Ethan, he realized that what he is doing now will not bring peace, but only endless disaster. He hadn't experienced it himself before, so he didn't understand. But now, he suddenly woke up. Live on, Tony. Ethan said the last thing to Tony and slapped soy sauce. Tony controlled the match and continued to move forward, killing all the enemies along the way. I have to say that the people of the Ten Rings gang are really stupid. No wonder he can only be the villain. I can't even figure out if Tony is building a weapon or a match with what they're offering. Is this big guy similar to the weapon they want? It turns out that even if you join a gang, you still need to read more. Tony slayed all the way, then flew into the air with little fuel. Before flying far, he plunged into the endless desert. Fortunately, at this time, a helicopter from the lighthouse country appeared in front of me. Finally rescued. It was Tony's only thought. After he woke up, he didn't want to stay here for a moment and left this sad place by plane. This is something he has never experienced in all his life. It was not until he got off the plane and stepped on the land of the lighthouse country that he seemed to come alive. Tony, how's it going? The moment Bai Xi saw Tony, he immediately asked. This made Road, Tony's good friend, not knowing what to say. Tony saw Bai Xi and immediately stepped up and hammered him. Then I wanted to hold Bai Xi and cry, brother, I almost died there. Unfortunately, Tony stretched out his hand and was pushed by Bai Xi and rejected. It seems that you didn't play very well. You haven't showered for so long, and you're already smelly, Bai Xi said with a smile. Tony hammered him again and said, you bastard, just wait and lose your money. Bai Xi shrugged and said it didn't matter. He definitely knew what Tony wanted to do. But it's the same for him. The big deal is that it will fall for a while. Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 42, Bai Xi's Sorcerer Supreme. It doesn't matter if the stock price falls, the big deal is to go to the roof point. But Bai Xi knows that Tony will develop new energy next, so don't panic at all and even want to laugh a little point anyway. The share is there as long as she Stark Group does not go bankrupt. Point seeing that he couldn't threaten Bai Xi, Tony immediately had no choice. Point he could only say to Bai Xi, seriously, I need a big meal to calm my mind. He seemed to be talking to Bai Xi. Point do you know how I got here during this time? Naturally, it was impossible for the Ten Rings gang to treat Tony well. These days were hard to imagine. Point for Tony, the richest man in the world, it was more uncomfortable than killing him. Okay. Then, Bai Xi and Tony still have a little friendship after all. Point, although he wanted to hammer Tony directly to death at first, Tony finally had a smile on his face. Point he quickly went back to take a shower and then came to Bai Xi's house. Point looking at the food that suits his own taste, Tony's saliva suddenly drooled. Point for this meal, he was reluctant to eat a cheeseburger just now. I'd rather be missing every day. Tony was almost in tears as he said, while nibbling on the poached chicken, hey, Tony, it's not my brother. I'm not looking for you. I really can't find it. Bai Xi at the moment is also feeling. Lana and Susan rolled their eyes. Life is like a play. Bai Xi and Tony talked for a long time, and Tony finally patted his stomach and said, Bai, I figured it out. I have to make a decision that goes against my ancestors. Bai Xi looked at Tony and almost laughed. Point why are the old liars saying the same thing? But Tony is also right. Howard Stark is his father, indeed his ancestor. I'm closing down the industrial arm of the Stark Group. Tony looked at Bai Xi and said, expecting Bai Xi's shocked expression. Point he is no longer the arms dealer who only cares about making money. However, I only saw Bai Xi say, I agree with both hands. Bai Xi wasn't shocked at all. Shouldn't you quickly sell the stock? The stock of She Stark Group will definitely plummet tomorrow. Don't blame me for not telling you in advance. Tony coughed twice and analyzed it seriously. Point however, Bai Xi nodded and said, I trust you Tony. This made Tony a little moved. Bai Xi looked like he could see through Tony. Tony wants Bai Xi to sell the stock so he can buy it back. However, Tony didn't know that Bai Xi already knew what was going to happen in the future. Point so Tony stumbled. Tony said depressedly, you're too smart to know that I'm a genius. So you hugged my thigh tightly. Don't be like this. Everyone knows you're a genius and a scumbag at the same time. Bai Xi patted Tony on the shoulder. Roll. Tony gave Bai Xi a middle finger, as Tony expected. Point when he held a press conference to announce the decision to go against his ancestors, the stock of Stark Group began to plummet. Point a badass expression of wanting to kill Tony also emerged. Point and for all this, only two people don't care. Tony instead locked himself in the basement and started smithing. Point as if living in a cave made him fall in love with blacksmithing. Definitely, it is mainly to let him experience the fun of mecha. Point mecha is a man's romance with Tony's progress. Mark II was born soon. Point compared to the bloated body of the Mark I. Point Mark II is the real Iron Man born. Tony just sprayed it red and hooked up the JARVIs after an operation. Tony finally felt the romance of the mecha. Point great experience, and at the moment, Abadia also got the Mark I from the Ten Ring gang. The Iron King. Point as for another indifferent Bai Xi, at the moment was standing on the lawn of his own house with a bald head in a robe in front of him. You go first, Bai Xi said to Lana and Susan. Lana at the moment was so obedient, she pulled Susan directly and left. Point she had already recognized the bald head in front of her, although it's just a rush. But after all, this dress is too special, this head is too bright and reflective, and Lana would not refute Bai Xi at all at a critical moment. Point extremely give Bai Xi face. She will do whatever Bai Xi asks her to do. Point it can be said to be very obedient. Ancient One looked at Bai Xi and said with a smile, we meet again. She carried her hands on her back and continued, if it weren't for the dimensional aura on you, I wouldn't be able to find you. Which dimension of Mephisto are you? Bai Xi, I'm really not a dimension Mephisto. He coughed twice and said, I'm an earthling, sorcerer supreme. I have never seen your breath. What is the purpose of your coming to Earth? Ancient One was unmoved. Point even she knows the name of Sorcerer Supreme, but also said that it is not the dimension Mephisto. Just a pity for the slab. Point I've seen it before. At the moment was actually possessed. Bai Xi also knew that Ancient One had misunderstood point, so he immediately said, I just went to an unknown dimension and took control of it. Do you think I would believe it? Ancient One shook his head, apparently losing his patience point, because the next moment, she slapped it directly point. Obviously, she wanted to photograph Bai Xi's soul, to see what he was. Kamatage's magician, this is the one he knows best point, but Bai Xi naturally wouldn't let her beat her so loud point. The soul was really beaten out by Ancient One. Isn't that human being the knife and me being the fish? Bai Xi deflected at an extremely fast speed. Ancient One slapped the air with his palm point, then he slashed directly at Ancient One's neck with a hand knife. A magical shield that was not much bigger than the palm appeared on Ancient One's hand and directly blocked it point, but she was still beaten back by Bai Xi's power and slipped a distance point. Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 43. Ancient One, you are very capable. Learn magic from me. Seeing Ancient One destroying his lawn, Bai Xi was a little angry. Do you know it's called trespassing privately? According to the laws of the Lighthouse Country, I have the right to kill you. However, the only answer to him was Ancient One's smile. I have no malice, as long as you show me the real body. Isn't this my real body, or is your mother-in-law driving? Then don't damage my lawn, Bai Xi said, spreading his hands. A golden light burst out from his hand. Ancient One frowned suddenly. Point, this spell, a bit familiar. Mirror space. The world suddenly turned upside down, and Ancient One stood on the ground with his feet like tree stumps watching this scene. Point, sure enough, it was Kamatage's mirror space. I'm even more curious that you know Kamatage's spells, Ancient One said with a smile. Bai Xi looked like a black fog to her, and he can't be seen in the time gem either. If it wasn't for the presence of Dimension Mephisto's breath, she wouldn't have discovered it. Point, no wonder when she first saw Bai Xi, she realized that he was just an ordinary person. Point, but the second time, Bai Xi directly hangs his hatred when he appears, although it looks like he's on the good side. Point, but there are many ways that Dimensional Mephisto invades the earth. And it is not that Dimensional Mephisto has done so before. Point, directly possess ordinary people, or turn humans into his followers, and then drop power. Be curious, I'll learn this from you. Bai Xi sneered. Point, it really was learned from Ancient One, just a direct copy. Ancient One was puzzled, and then saw that Bai Xi took the initiative to attack. Bai Xi and Hela have been trapped together for so long, and the combat experience has also improved by leaps and bounds. Previously he only had Batman combat experience. Point, although my grandfather is also very fierce, but after all, he is just an ordinary person, and he has little experience in high-end combat. Point, haven't seen that you can only make soy sauce when you fight a Steppenwolf. After a fight with Hela, Bai Xi's strength also became stronger, so in the face of Ancient One, it is completely true. Point, especially the Ancient One is a Malay magician. Point, you think you are Gandalf? Question mark. Bai Xi grabbed Ancient One's hands and pushed her out directly. Ancient One rubbed his numb arm and knew that he was not Bai Xi's opponent in Malay combat. Point, don't be stingy with money. Oh no, no more Malay outfits. Ancient One made a magic gesture, and countless Ancient Ones appeared in the mirror space, shape of Akon, like a multi-shadow duplication. However, the duplication of this spell is physical. Point, therefore, the spells of the Ancient One can be released. Point, as for Bai Xi, he stretched out his right hand, and a force of death emerged from the dimensional mark. Point, then, this force exploded directly. All the duplications of Ancient One directly death in an instant. Point, as for Ancient One, his expression was a little weird at this time. The breath of this dimension, isn't it left by the god King Odin? It seemed that Bai Xi really didn't lie to her, but now I can't take it anymore. Point, run over to fight directly, and then say no to fight. Ancient One is not so naive. Point, moreover, at the moment she also saw Bai Xi's eyes red. Point, this is definitely not pink eye, but she has seen this trick. Point, she immediately pushed her hands forward. Point, hot sight. Shield of Seraphim. Facing the hot gaze sent by Ancient One, a huge amount of shield appeared in front of him. The shield is transparent and has golden spell patterns on it. It looks like a summoning formation point, but it's actually a shield. It looks very fancy, but it resists the heat of sight. Then, another huge amount of snowball appeared in front of Bai Xi. Like Nanu threw the snowball over frozen thousands of miles. Ancient One frowned as huge amounts of snowballs approached her. Snowballs turned directly into butterflies. Hog's ancient body. A dream-like effect. Then, the collision of Bai Xi's ability and Ancient One. However, Bai Xi has some scruples. He didn't want to reveal all his combat power and Ancient One didn't want to kill him. Therefore, after a lot of tricks, the two took a step back. Bai Xi took a break from his busy schedule and looked at his panel. Host, Bai Xi. Person, Dimension Mephisto. Physical, Demigod. Items, Symbiosis Talisman, Mantra Lasso, Fountain of Youth, Bumblebee, Elf Ball, Supreme Lord of the Rings. Ability, Batman's fighting ability, Teleportation, Advanced version, Serious Punch, Hot Sight, Time Travel, Frozen 1000 Miles, Mirror Space. It turned out that there was an extra person unknowingly, and it was also the Dimension Mephisto. No wonder it was discovered by Ancient One. Careless. Ancient One had her hands on her back, and what she couldn't see was that her hands trembled slightly. Bai Xi, a young man, doesn't talk about martial arts. Facing her, the hundreds of years old Sorcerer Supreme. It is neither light nor heavy. As a result, her arms are now almost unconscious. Ancient One pretended to be calm, looked at Bai Xi with a smile on his face and said, "You are very capable. Would you like to learn magic with me? You can be the next generation of Sorcerer Supreme." Ancient One said this in order to make up for it. But I do think that Bai Xi's ability is unique. If Bai Xi agrees, then Strange. It's not that he can't give up. Although even Ancient One has to admit that Strange is the best Sorcerer Supreme in history. I'm not interested in magic. Bai Xi also said lightly, "Have you heard a word?" What? Ancient One wondered. Break. Through all methods with one force. Bai Xi also carried his hands on his back and said arrogantly. Ancient One was instantly silent. "I respect your decision, so goodbye." After Ancient One finished speaking, a portal appeared in front of her. She stepped in and disappeared. You know, Bai Xi hasn't released the mirror space yet, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 44. Your mission is to kill Bai Xi. Call, Yelena was lying in a laboratory with steady breathing, and suddenly her breathing became rapid. The next second, she opened her eyes directly. With her eyes wide open, she sat up straight and looked at the surrounding walls. A portrait or photo of a strange man was posted all over the walls. She doesn't know this person. Just then, the laboratory door opened. A woman with long braids wearing a weird mask walked in on high heels. She pointed to the man on the wall and asked, "Yelena, do you know him?" Yelena shook her head without any hesitation and said, "I don't know." The woman wearing the mask looked at Yelena's eyes, and Yelena didn't have any fluctuations. She smiled silently. Then he continued, "This is your goal." Yelena looked at the photo and nodded deeply. "His name is Bai Xi. Do you remember him?" The masked woman grabbed Yelena's neck, raised her head, and looked into her own eyes. Yelena's eyes were a little confused, but there was no other fluctuation. "Do not remember. Is he your neighbor?" "Do not remember. You like to eat his food the most." "Do not remember." After asking directly, Yelena's eyes did not fluctuate. Then her neck was thrown off without resisting. There was only confusion in her eyes. "Your mission is to kill him." The woman in the mask said one last sentence. Yelena nodded with killing intent in her eyes, but there was still no other fluctuation. She is completely under the control of the Red House, ready at all the time. The woman in the mask nodded in satisfaction and walked out of the laboratory. Drekov, who was behind a mirror, was also satisfied with this scene. The experiment was extremely successful. The masked woman came behind him and said. Drekov said with a smile, "After spending so much money, it is finally completed. No Black Widow can betray the organization again." The masked woman also nodded. Although she was Drekhov's assistant, she was very afraid of Drekhov. "Ah. You still blaming me for ruining your appearance?" Drekhov suddenly looked at her and asked. "No, this is your gift," she answered immediately. Without hesitation. Drekhov just smiled. "You also have to go to the experiment." "Yes." The woman in the mask shuddered in fear and replied. "Although after the experiment she will become a thorough tool for Drekhov. But at least alive." Drekhov looked at Yelena behind the one-way mirror and laughed cruelly. "I'll let you record a video so that you can wake up later and see how you eliminated your weaknesses with your own hands." Yelena. Suddenly, Drekhov shook his head as if that wasn't cruel enough. "Why don't you let you kill him? Dig out his heart with your own hands and then release the control." The assistant behind him trembled and looked at the demon with fearful eyes. "This is more vicious than murder. Will Yelena turn into a monster?" Bai Xi unlocked the mirror space. For the understanding of space, Ancient One is still deeper than him. He left directly from his mirror space. But this is normal. His mirror space is copied from Ancient One. What more bike do you want? Ancient One is not as strong as expected. But it was normal. Neither of them let go. Lana and Susan ran out of it immediately. "Ah. You alright? Who is she?" Lana grabbed Bai Xi's arm and asked. She and Susan were still very nervous when the two of them disappeared just now. Although it is not the first time to see Bai Xi disappear out of thin air. "She's the bald head. Have you forgotten?" Bai Xi said. "I definitely know." Lana rolled her eyes at Bai Xi. Bai Xi must know what she is asking. But Bai Xi didn't say anything, so she didn't ask anymore. Bai Xi smiled and touched Lana's head without explaining anything. "You only need to know that bald heads are strong," Bai Xi suddenly exclaimed. Both Lana and Susan were speechless. Then he stroked his full hair. "It's better to keep your hair. You two need to get stronger quickly." Back in the villa, sitting on the sofa, Bai Xi said seriously. As time came to 2008, he felt that his leisurely life suddenly disappeared. In fact, it is the leisurely two-person world between him and Lana was gradually broken. Especially when so many things happened at once to make him realize. Time is running out. This seems to be said to the two, but it is actually Susan. Needless to say about Lana's strength. Lana has suffered since childhood, and her own ability is the only thing she can rely on. In a way, even more reliable than Bai Xi. Therefore, she has been working hard to develop her ability to make herself stronger. But Susan was different. She grew up in a wealthy family and was still a scholar, and everything went smoothly. Even though he came to the Otherworld alone, he also met Bai Xi and Lana, so he had no sense of crisis. So she still only hides. But in fact, invisibility is just the most basic ability. Susan's invisibility comes from the fact that she can control light waves, but with training, she can be even stronger. Hearing Bai Xi's words, Susan also nodded heavily. Fortunately, Bai Xi also took into account her face, and she also knew that Bai Xi was for her own good. So, Susan began to work hard to develop her own ability. It turns out that Susan is also very capable, because she is a scholar. After she figured out the principle of her ability, her control of her ability improved by leaps and bounds. Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 45. As a native of the Dragon Kingdom, WHATN-039, S wrong with spells? After a week, Susan can make others invisible with her. It's just that the problem of clothes has not been solved, and special materials may be required. She can then manipulate the energy within her body to create an invisible force field and energy shield. Even Lana, with her help, can better control the surrounding magnetic and force fields. This is the role of a scholar. At the moment, Bai Xi can only sigh with emotion. Knowledge alters your fate, and it was on this night that Bai Xi received a call from Xiaochili. He hesitation for a while, but still takes it. It's so late. Tony's secretary called. Wouldn't it cause a misunderstanding? Pepper felt that something was wrong with Abadia, so, without telling Tony, she took the initiative to investigate Abadia herself. And found evidence that Abadia was secretly working on Tony. Shocked, Pepper quickly escaped, wanting to give Tony the evidence point. However, who would have thought that Obadiah would strike first and become stronger? He went straight to Tony Stark's house and powered Tony up with a little toy Tony made himself, ripping the reactor out of his heart point because Obadiah found that the other researchers were a bunch of rubbish. Something Tony could make by himself. A group of them can't shrink together. You can't put a huge amount of reactor on top of Iron Overlord. That doesn't become a dangerous wanderer. So, Obadiah can only come to grab Tony's. But he also made mistakes. That is not to make up for the knife, but to let Tony die directly. It was in this situation that Pepper couldn't get through to Tony's phone, and she couldn't go because she came to the base where Iron Overlord was stored. So, in a hurry, Zia actually called Bai Xi directly. Because it seems that Tony and Bai Xi have the best relationship. She never thought that the two might be cousins. Mr. Bai, Tony didn't answer the phone. Can you visit his house? As soon as the phone was connected, Pepper said immediately, no. Time to explain, Mr. Bai. Bai Xi was stunned at first, and then reacted immediately. Okay. Then, although he and Tony are close friends, Bai Xi can't let Tony die. His stock has been falling. Tony is dead, and the Stark group is over. Then he will really become a pauper. Therefore, Bai Xi directly hung up the phone. Whose phone number? Why is there a woman's voice? Lana asked suspiciously, squinting eyes with thick shadows to stare at him. What did she hear? No time to explain. Explain what? Get in the car soon, Bai Xi said immediately. Tony's secretary. You've seen it before, little Pepper. Why is she looking for you? Lana reacted immediately. Tony may have an accident, but there are many problems. Bai Xi said, he's the one who flies around in red armor. Bai Xi explained. Oh. Lana nodded. No wonder I saw it on the news before. But the Lighthouse military helped Tony hide it. Would you like to play? His mecha was restrained by you. Bai Xi asked. He suddenly remembered that Lorna's ability was really Tony's nemesis after all. No matter how he gets his steel battlesuit, Lorna will kill him. What Wolverine is to Magneto. A completely unreliable ability. He's your friend. What does it have to do with me? Lorna said disdainfully, not interested at all. I'm leaving. After Bai Xi finished speaking, he immediately disappeared in place. And Lorna is going to rest, but this is the time she saw Susan come down, and then the two of them looked outside the villa together. Someone is coming. Bai Xi teleported and arrived at Tony's house. Although the two's villas are not far away, it is only a few minutes drive. But it can be a teleportation thing. Why is it so troublesome? Tony, who was about to lose consciousness, saw Bai Xi suddenly appear in front of him and was so frightened that he immediately came to life. He pointed at Bai Xi, speechless. I'll get you the reactor. After Bai Xi finished speaking, he went straight down, but unfortunately he couldn't open it without his fingerprints. So kicks straight. Then he found the old reactor that Tony had replaced and pressed Tony directly. Can you be gentle? Tony was made to yell by Bai Xi. The reactor was installed, and he was instantly healed. You're not a woman, Bai Xi said casually. What's the matter with you? He appeared instantly before Tony apparently asked. I'm a native of the Dragon Kingdom, so it's not normal to know some spells, Bai Xi replied calmly. Tony was speechless. This reason. Very good. Very powerful. In the inherent impression of the people of the Lighthouse country, isn't it that every person in the Dragon country can do martial arts? Afterwards, Tony Stark changed into the steel battlesuit directly in front of Bai Xi. He looked at Bai Xi with a calm face and asked, aren't you curious? What's so great about wearing tattered? Bai Xi asked back. TM. Tony wanted to show off, but he was speechless for a moment. You are so good at chatting. You don't ask who did this to me. Tony didn't give up. Definitely Obadiah, and you will be played around by him. Bai Xi continued to slap Tony. I've clearly been on guard against him. After Tony finished speaking, he immediately put on his mask and flew out of the villa. I can't talk anymore. Iron Man and Iron Overlord have to face each other after all. Tony is very confident. He upgraded the steel battlesuit. Obadiah is definitely not his opponent. Where did you think? Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 46 Lorna vs Natasha Romanoff. Second round. Tony could never have imagined that Abadia, who he had always looked down on, would hang and beat him. Although Abadia can't create ability on his own, but upgrade ability still exists. He took the residual embryo left by Tony and directly transformed it into the Iron Overlord. What is the most expensive and best? He installs it directly. Firepower, armor thickness, etc. are basically better than Tony's. Tony really missed it this time. For a time, he was embarrassed by Abadia. So he could only think of that trick. Tony lured Abadia into the sky. Then, just as he expected, Abadia's Iron Overlord froze directly in the sky. When Tony sneered, then knocked on the Iron King. Tai Boang fell directly from the sky, smashing a thick layer of ash on the ground. Ended. Tony sighed with emotion, and then saw Iron Overlord appearing in front of him, as if nothing was wrong. Boom. Tony was shot straight away. Moreover, this time, I don't know why, Abadia didn't beep with Tony and just wanted to kill him. It might be the appearance of Bai Xi that made him realize the crisis he was going to deal with Tony and then deal with Bai Xi. Otherwise, she start group as Bai Xi's. The mantis catches the cicada and the oriole behind. Everyone understands this principle. Therefore, this time Abadia's shot was extremely fierce. Because this thing has been leaked. He has nowhere to turn back. So Tony was directly knocked to the ground by him, and even the steel helmet was knocked off. Then he aimed straight at Tony's head. Then he said, "Bye, Tony." Boom. In an instant, the fire lit up the sky and the smoke filled the air. Tony opened his eyes and saw Bai Xi standing in front of him. "How did you do that?" Tony asked again, startled. Bai Xi squeezed the big treasure sent by Abadia with his bare hands, but he was unscathed. Definitely, demigod body is actually not that explosive. Bai Xi still hurts, but for the sake of grace, he still held back. Bai Xi turned his head to Tony and said, "As a native of the Dragon Kingdom, isn't it normal for me to practice martial arts?" "Do you call this martial arts?" Tony finally couldn't help but complain. After 1,000 searches, the master is by your side. He knew that the Bai Xi family was very special. That Lorna doesn't look like a mess either. The result was more terrifying than he had imagined. There was the Hulk in front and Bai Xi in the back. What happened to this world? Don't talk nonsense. Make a quick decision. Bai Xi looked around. He didn't want to be seen by too many ordinary people. At the same time, Lorna and Susan looked at the two people who entered the yard and immediately confronted each other. "You again." Lorna held out her hands, glowing green, tilted her head, and said to Natasha Romanoff. Natasha Romanoff was also confused, then looked at Susan. "This is a misunderstanding." Natasha Romanoff explained. She wasn't ready and didn't want to fight Lorna again. She pointed to Yelena a little ahead and said, "I came with her when I was a 3-year-old. Lorna was almost amused by the reason to swipe his feet. But in fact, Natasha Romanoff really didn't lie to her. Natasha Romanoff was about to go to the Stark building, but suddenly, halfway through the drive, the symbiote was hot. The symbiotic symbol is sensitive to the proximity. She immediately turned the car around and followed, and then saw Yelena. She followed Yelena closely, because she could see Yelena was on a mission. But what surprised her was, Yelena doesn't seem to know her anymore. But before much communication, Lorna and Susan came out of the house. As a result, the two sides confronted each other under the wrong circumstances. "Yelena, what are you doing here? Don't you remember me?" Natasha Romanoff asked quickly. But Yelena said nothing. She was like a robot, scanning her surroundings. Drekov naturally saw Natasha Romanoff, but he knew that Yelena was no match for Natasha Romanoff. Natasha Romanoff is the most powerful Black Widow ever, and Yelena just succeeded Natasha Romanoff. Then he saw Lorna. Lorna is often with Bai Xi. He definitely knows that. Then he controlled Yelena to do it directly. The three people present saw Yelena, said nothing, and then suddenly took out the pistol from the holster. Bang, bang, bang. Crazy. Shooting straight at Lorna and Susan. Apparently it was towards the two of them. Lorna didn't have time to think about who he had offended, and the moment he shot, his hands turned over. But the Bullet was immediately controlled by her in midair, and it only nearly hit her and Susan. Caught. Death. Lana scolded herself for being careless, and then her anger surged. She spread her hands, and the bullet flew backwards. Dreykov, who saw this scene, was stunned. In this kind of operation, fortunately, Yelena's fighting consciousness is still there. She's just brain controlled. Dreykov doesn't fully control her. Yelena and Natasha Romanoff dodged immediately. Natasha Romanoff also cursed inwardly. What the hell is Yelena doing? Are you crazy? Get her all involved. Then, Lana and Susan each found an opponent. Lana pointed Yelena at Susan, and she looked at Natasha Romanoff and said, "Let go of you once, and there won't be a second time." Susan nodded. Although she was completely stunned, she fired without knowing why. However, it can be confirmed that it is the enemy. Natasha Romanoff is also helpless because of those things on his body. Those that could be controlled by Lana were thrown away directly. She also hurriedly took off her vest or something for fear of being controlled by Lana. Fortunately, she doesn't wear gold and silver jewelry, otherwise it would be uncomfortable. The second round of Lana vs Natasha Romanoff begins, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 47. How do you think Bai Xi is an ordinary person? In just 3 or 4 years, Natasha Romanoff went from a little girl who knew nothing to the most powerful Black Widow ever, relying on her ability and learning ability. Gymnastics movements, acrobatics, high altitude acrobatics, she can easily do, and her body is soft beyond imagination. Karate, judo, ninjutsu, boxing. She can learn it as soon as she learns it, and she can easily reach the master level. In particular, she is also very smart. Natasha Romanoff was smart from an early age, possessing the ability to quickly process multiple information streams, such as threat assessments, and respond quickly to changing tactical situations. So, she's a tactical expert. In battle, she can also quickly find the enemy's flaws, and now, it's her second fight with Lana. Although Lana has also become a lot stronger, and she doesn't seem to have changed. But she still got close to Lana. Lana controlled the nearby telephone poles and light poles and smashed them towards Natasha Romanoff, and Natasha Romanoff was like dancing ballet in the air, twisted his waist at will, and then jumped forward. It escaped precisely what Lana controlled. She was like a leopard, throwing her hands on the ground, and supporting her immediately jumped in front of Lana. Lana had never encountered this kind of battle, and tried to control herself to fly, but was caught by Natasha Romanoff's ankle. Natasha Romanoff did a somersault, her legs directly pinching Lana's body in midair, fell down hard. However, Lana had something she could control. She controlled her body from falling, but she couldn't throw Natasha Romanoff away. Because Natasha Romanoff lost everything under her control. That's right, force field. At this time, Lana suddenly thought of the teaching from Zuba Susan. Her ability can also create fields. She created a gravitational field directly in the distance from herself. Natasha Romanoff was drawn directly to the past without control. However, Natasha Romanoff held Lana tightly with both hands and feet. The two flew out together on the other side. Susan confronted Yelena. Although after a period of practice, it is only to deepen the development of my ability. Combat experience. Susan is close to me. So, when she saw Yelena running towards her, Susan could only hurry to hide. Then I found out that being invisible is useless, because she was still wearing clothes. Yelena didn't have any days, and went straight to a strangulation. Susan was slammed to the ground. Suddenly pain. She had never been beaten like this since she was a child. But Yelena didn't give her time to be dumbfounded. Right on her right away. Yelena accurately judged Susan's limbs through the clothes and pinched Susan's neck accurately. Yelena was expressionless, looking like she was going to kill her directly. But Susan finally felt the benefit of developing ability. The invisible force field was used by her, but it was an ultrasonic attack. What? Yelena was rushed out directly. Her ability is really powerful. Susan stood up and simply removed her invisibility. Yelena rolled over and picked up the pistol that Lana had thrown away from the ground. Get upright, aim, fire, all in one go. Susan pushed her hand forward and an energy shield appeared directly. Bang, bang, bang. The Bullets all stopped on the shield point then. Susan, who had an idea, saw Lorna floating point. It's all force fields. She can't fly. Then, Susan slowly floated up from the ground. You pissed me off. Lorna finally shook off Natasha Romanoff, who seemed to be stuck to her body, and said, me too. Natasha Romanoff is on the ground with one hand, one on her waist. He will definitely scold me. Lorna tilted her head and said something. Who? Natasha Romanoff was a little stunned, then saw Lorna raised her hands and grabbed it suddenly. Boom. Like an explosion. The window of the villa behind her shattered, and everything that could be controlled by Lorna flew up. Natasha Romanoff, who subconsciously took out a special pistol, was immediately frightened. After the last battle with Lorna, she specially asked the people at SHIELD to make a laser pistol. The material is guaranteed not to be controlled, and the bullets that are shot are not controlled. Definitely, Natasha Romanoff didn't even think about using it directly, just kept it with him. In case. A gentleman hides his utensils in his body and waits for the occasion to move. You don't have to use it, but you must have it. It's just, I didn't expect that before she could use it. The scene in front of her scared her. Natasha Romanoff immediately turned around and ran opposite to hang up, but also a fart. As Natasha Romanoff ran constantly, she heard a rumbling sound behind her. Turning around, Natasha Romanoff was faster. I saw that the land and lawn behind him were lifted up by Lorna, rolling towards her, constantly flying. Is this to bury her in the ground? Natasha Romanoff jumped, broke the window, and got into the driver's seat. Then immediately hit the gas pedal. And Lorna hesitation for a moment, and did not continue. Just destroy an area, and if you continue, Bai Xi will beat people instead of cursing. As for Yelena on the other side, seeing Lorna go wild, she ran away too. This is totally unstoppable. Dreykov, who had been observing this scene, suddenly went crazy. If I can control this woman to become a Black Widow, that's a great deal. Dreykov never thought that Bai Xi's women had such strong strength. And its super ability. Will Bai Xi be the same? Dreykov shook his head. Bai Xi was just an ordinary person no matter what. Add more today, ask for flowers, ask for evaluation tickets, ask for monthly tickets, ask for everything. Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 48. I'm Iron Man. Abadia, why bother? Bai Xi actually didn't understand Abadia's thoughts. Wouldn't it be nice to lie down and make money like him? Owning the second largest stake in the Stark Group in history is enough for him to support him for several lifetimes, but his ambition will eventually destroy him. It's you. Exactly. You died with Tony. Abadia, at the moment, was out of his mind. He didn't even consider how Bai Xi resisted. If the sky makes it perish, it must first make it mad. Bai Xi sighed with emotion. Then, Abadia fired frantically at him. A huge amount of ice wall suddenly appeared in front of Bai Xi, and all of them hit the ice wall and turned into potholes. It's over, Abadia. Bai Xi said to Abadia. Then, he instantly moved in front of Abadia and threw a punch. Stupid. I have the Iron Overlord. Abadia immediately smiled when he saw Bai Xi's behavior, but in the next second, he felt his consciousness slacken. The scene in front of you is the last scene. He, together with the Iron Overlord mecha, turned into a powder directly under Bai Xi's punch. Serious punch. Bai Xi stood on the spot with his hands on his back, fluttering as if he was alone in the world. Tony looked dumbfounded. Bai, how strong are you? Bai Xi raised his thumb and index finger and turned his back to him. Only a little bit stronger than you. Tony wanted to complain very much, but a group of people had gathered around. When I looked again, Bai Xi had disappeared. Tony, who is that person? Pepper. Pepper and the Phil Coulson agent both look at Tony. Tony said, oh, an interesting passerby. Phil Coulson was immediately speechless. When Bai Xi came back, everyone was dumbfounded. I didn't expect to just go out. When I came back, I saw that my home was almost gone. Lorna stood there like a good baby, shrugging her shoulders. Susan was also a little embarrassed. What happened? Bai Xi didn't have much anger, but still asked in surprise. Isn't it just a villa? It doesn't matter if it is destroyed. Anyway, his super ability is rich point. It's just that he's trying to figure out what's going on. We were attacked, Susan said. Who? Bai Xi looked at Lorna and Susan. Both women are still agents. Lorna said bitterly, don't let me see them next time, or I won't let them go. But Bai Xi felt a little strange when he heard the words it's a feeling that suddenly burst out of the heart. He had a hunch that those two would be important to him. So Bai Xi's throat suddenly became a little dry and asked, what's your name? The voice was a little hoarse. There's one named Yelena, the other one doesn't know, Susan recalled and said. Bai Xi opened his mouth wide when he heard the words, then looked at the traces to the side. Sad is required. This was the first time he heard Yelena's trail. Another estimate is Natasha Romanoff. Natasha Romanoff, if he wanted to find it, he would have found it, and SHIELD had been in contact with him many times, but Bai Xi has always had the idea of going with the flow. If Natasha Romanoff was looking for him, wouldn't he have come already? But Yelena. Bai Xi didn't know how he was feeling. What's up with him? Susan asked Lorna. Lorna murmured, Yelena, this name seems familiar. Natasha Romanoff returned to SHIELD, clutching her waist. Lorna's information was investigated late at night. Everyone else was taking care of other things. No one cared about her. Even Nick Fury was having a hard time with Tony. This playboy is so troublesome. So many people in New York have seen the red steel battlesuit. How can they quibble now? So Natasha Romanoff went very well. She looked at the information in her hand. Lorna. Gender female. Partner unknown. Experience in an orphanage since childhood. Looking at Lorna's profile, Natasha Romanoff was acutely aware that something was amiss. It's too simple, and this super ability person, SHIELD, didn't even make a large file. You know, Lorna was discovered by her first, and it has been a few years since then. SHIELD has always attached great importance to these super ability people. Almost everyone is monitored and controlled by the SHIELD, but, except Lorna, Natasha Romanoff has his sights set on this line. Partner unknown. Yes, is there? No, is not. Isn't this unknown here without 300 teals of silver? What the hell are you hiding, Nick? Natasha Romanoff muttered to herself. She was going to find out for herself. Unfortunately, when she came carefully again, the three Bai Xi had already left. Bai Xi could only take Lorna and the two to find Tony for help. Although Tony can't take care of himself now. But he is a god. The only good thing is how many houses. It's an apartment in Manhattan, and I'm just getting the keys to this one. I have too many houses. Tony searched for a long time and then gave Bai Xi a set of keys. Maybe that's the trouble with too many houses. It's okay. I will go to Los Angeles with me in the future. I have a lot of houses in Hollywood Hills and Beverly Hills, and I won't lose the keys. Tony winked at Bai Xi. Definitely not now. I have to think about the manuscript. He has a press conference tomorrow. After all, there was a lot of noise tonight. At night, when there were many people, he still had such a big fight with Abadia. Definitely, Tony is still really sad. Abadia turned out to betray him. But from his face, there was no such emotion at all. Let's go first. Bai Xi waved his hand and said, I'll see your performance tomorrow. Hey, it really is a good brother, or you know me. Tony winked immediately. He has already figured out how to pretend tomorrow. Many people want him to hide it and turn this into a mystery. As long as he doesn't admit it, others can't do anything about him. But Tony Stark is not that kind of person. Ask him to keep a low profile and stay out of the limelight. It was worse than killing him. He's not Bruce Wayne, hiding everything under a mask. Tony put on the steel mask just because he didn't want to be shot in the head. It's that simple. But it's definitely not that you don't want people to know your identity. He was not afraid at all. He is Iron Man. Tony Stark and Bruce Wayne are two completely opposite personalities. The only thing in common is that they are all rich second generation. The three of Bai Xi and Pokemon Ding Ding sat on Bumblebee and headed to Manhattan. Fortunately, his beloved Bumblebee was not destroyed by Lorna. Bumblebee was still shivering with fear. They are So sad for the Autobots in this world. Fat Thing was summoned and occupied by Lorna, even if he was often painted. Manhattan is the central district of New York, and is even known as the economic center of the Beacon Country. Here are the United Nations headquarters. Wall Street, the New York Stock Exchange. Therefore, the price of a high-level apartment here is not lower than that of the villa that Bai Xi lived in before. Even going up through the private elevator, Bai Xi saw the United Nations building opposite at a glance through the window. Maybe a little more expensive, he sighed. This is the life of a rich man, and from what he knew about Tony must have never lived here before. It's better than the previous villas, except there's no lawn. Lorna also said happily. Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelos. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 49 Braised Egg, I Can. 039, T-Chat today. The 18,000 square foot, multi-level apartment contains a private elevator, sculpture garden, home theater, music room, private spa, gym, tea room and a 2,000 bottle wine cellar. These are the apartment specifications Tony gave to Bai Xi. Definitely, the most exaggerated is the amazing floor-to-ceiling windows, which can perfectly see the night of New York from the sky. How charming. Then came the allotment of rooms, 6 bedrooms, 12 bathrooms. As Lorna said. Other than not having its own lawn, everything else is perfect. But they just like lawns. This is probably the largest apartment complex in New York. Bai Xi came to the balcony. It was very windy at night. Lorna changed into her pajamas and came to him. The two were lying on the railing, and Lorna looked at his profile and asked, "Is it them?" "Maybe." Bai Xi replied, "Feel sorry." Lorna also knew she was wrong. "I should have just caught them." Bai Xi was about to say it was okay, but he couldn't. The brain circuit is amazing. "It's windy, go and rest." After a while, Bai Xi said. Lorna followed him in. "I am Iron Man." On the TV, after hesitating for a while, Tony raised his head and said confidently. At this moment, everyone was stunned. Tony naturally enjoyed the spotlight. The shock that this brings is naturally a huge amount of. Bai Xi turned off the TV. Tony's pretentious character would never change for a while. It's a pity that Tony will enter a state of autism before long. Palladium poisoning. It is easy for people to be poisoned by metal, not to mention that he puts the reactor in his heart. It's just disgusting that he didn't die early enough. But Tony was afraid. He was afraid to die. So he didn't dare to do the surgery. It didn't take long before Tony called. Bai Xi thought he was showing off. "Bai, an idiot came to my house and said they invited me to join their plan. Hahaha." As soon as he answered the phone, Bai Xi heard Tony's laughter. He could already imagine Nick Fury's maddening look on his face. There is a picture. "That's right. That's it." So Bai Xi asked, "You agreed? How is that possible? I'm Tony Stark, and I don't need any other allies." Tony immediately replied that this was also rejecting Nick Fury. Even though he has gone through so much, his arrogant character has not changed. Except for Bai Xi, a friend who has been recognized by him. He doesn't care about anyone else. That's why Bai Xi said before that people like Tony are difficult to get along with. Because it is very difficult for you to get his approval. Throughout the Avengers, only Dr. Bruce Banner was recognized by him. Because Dr. Banner is also a genius. He can communicate with Tony. Between geniuses, others just work as colleagues at most. A little bit of a father-son relationship with little Spider-Man Peter Parker. But as long as you get Tony's approval, you'll know how cool it is. Like right now, Tony will tell you anything, and you're always there for him. "Oh, this lunatic still wants to see you." Tony opened his mouth. Nick Fury has gone from fool to lunatic. Nick Fury hacked his JARVIS outright because he was angry. It is impossible for anyone not to be angry. Even if you break into a famous house without permission, you will directly hack other people's artificial intelligence. So don't blame Tony for hating marinated eggs. Let him wait. Bai Xi said. Speaking of which, I've seen it a few times with braised eggs. It has been more than 10 years since we first met. Haven't had a formal conversation yet. Bai Xi teleported directly to Tony's house. Tony looked at Bai Xi, who suddenly appeared. Although he had seen it, he was still a little frightened. Your ability is too scary. Tony brought him a glass of wine and then said, how is my apartment? The prime location. There are countless girls every night. Just don't take it back. I don't think you can take it back with Lorna watching you. Bai Xi said speechlessly. Do you think I'm you? You better hurry up and save the She Stark group. Oh, stocks are going crazy today. Tony said proudly. He said he was Iron Man, and it wasn't all about pretending. She Stark group's stock has been plummeting, and he has to find a way to save it. As Bai Xi said. And now he has no new energy, so naturally he can only use this method. This time, the whole world focused on the Stark group. Naturally, the stock rose immediately. Gentlemen, at this point, Nick Fury couldn't help but interrupt. It's not night now. Why can't these two see him? Meet again, Mr. Bai Xi. Nick Fury looked at Bai Xi with one eye and said, I still like the way your eyes look. Bai Xi let out a smile and then opened his heart. Fortunately, Nick Fury has long been used to it. I saw Bai Xi 3 times and was scolded by Bai Xi every time. Oh, have you seen this lunatic and a fool? Tony asked immediately when he saw this. Bai Xi took a sip of wine. He's really stupid. Nick Fury decided not to listen to them anymore. He said decisively, gentlemen, this world is more dangerous than you think. Do you think you know more than I do? Bai Xi immediately asked Nick Fury. Nick Fury was speechless again. If he guessed correctly, when Carol returned to Earth, the first person he saw was Bai Xi. No chat today. Nick Fury suddenly had the urge to flip the table. Natasha Romanoff and Yelena will not become broken shoes under the protection of the symbiotic symbol. I also blame the author for not writing it clearly. It has been written clearly in the front, so you don't have to see Black Widow and think it is a broken shoe. The author also. I'm not a fool. I definitely won't write such a disgusting plot. And finally ask for the data. Celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. Chapter 50. Natasha Romanoff saw it with her own eyes. Bai Xi sighed and then said, you think you are protecting the world, but in fact you don't matter at all. When the disaster really hits, you can't actually do anything. Why? You can't see reality clearly? Bai Xi stared at Nick Fury and asked, this is the most annoying thing about SHIELD. I want to take care of everything, but in fact most things can't be done well. Moreover, the so-called SHIELD has long existed in name only. It has become Hydra. Nick Fury couldn't open his mouth when asked. That's why we need an alliance, an organization, a group of Avengers. After a while, Nick Fury responded. No matter what Bai Xi said, he remains unwavering in his career. From this point of view, he is not that annoying. Maybe. Bai Xi thought of Avengers. Although they solve a lot of things, are they really essential? It's like the Justice League. It doesn't matter if there's anyone else. But there must be no Superman. Otherwise, you can't even beat a Steppenwolf. I hope you can think about it carefully. If one day the Earth encounters a disaster, we must have strength to stop it. Nick Fury stood up and said. Then looked at Tony again. Especially, humans are not alone in this universe. After he finished speaking, he was about to leave, and Bai Xi put a lot of pressure on him. Suddenly, Bai Xi asked his back, how is Natasha Romanoff doing? Nick Fury paused. You're doing well. Why don't you see her yourself? Bai Xi didn't answer. Take care of her, or you'll be finished. Nick Fury took the threat and walked away. Tony was a little confused by the conversation between the two. Who is Natasha Romanoff? Sounds like a woman's name. He smiled wickedly at Bai Xi. Bai Xi immediately gave him a middle finger. Isn't This stupid saying that humans are not alone. I have always believed that there are other life forms in the universe. This is very scientific. Tony continued. He is essentially a man who believes a lot in science. Just like Doctor Strange. Originally, he was a very smart person, so he would naturally believe in science more. So getting them to believe in theology becomes extremely difficult. That's why Ancient One had to wait until Strange had a car accident to retire. Until such a desperate moment, Strange will definitely not believe in any magic. So did Tony. But once such people let go of their stubbornness and begin to believe in magic and learn it, the ability is extraordinary. This proves the importance of knowledge. A scholar is a scholar, no matter what he does. Tony was talking about science. Bai Xi wasn't very interested. Tony saw it. So he came over and asked, "Do you want us to join the organization?" He said, "How about the two of us being the boss? Not fun." That's right. Mechas and women are better than. What if you were to choose one? I want it all. Tony was silent for a moment, then raised his glass and said, "These two seem to have become his life." Lana and Susan got off the elevator. Although the apartment was nice, they were not used to it. Even if it's only been there for a day, because it wasn't their own home. It was Tony Stark's plus. It's Manhattan, and it's so crowded. It seems that wherever they go, there will be people who will not like them. They are the pursuit of freedom, the pursuit of space. Living in Manhattan, although there is a lot of space in the house, there is no lawn, and no place to bask in the sun. Definitely, this time they came out not to look for a house, which requires Bai Xi's consent. In fact, Bai Xi didn't want to stay at Tony's house all the time. Maybe this is due to the emotions of the people of the Dragon Kingdom. The house must be yours. As for what was destroyed by Lorna before, I can only find someone to slowly repair it. Although he can directly reverse the flow of time and only control the flow of time near the house. But after living in one place for a long time, he will always want to change the environment. This is called liking the new and disliking the old. What's more, Bai Xi is not bad for money. Without more than 10 properties, how can you show that you are rich? So, this time, Lana and Susan wanted to buy materials. Susan is simply enough for her ability. She didn't want to take off her clothes every time she was invisible. Then I can only make clothes that can be invisible with her. Fortunately, she is a scholar and can solve it by herself. You don't have to ask Mr. Fantastic for help. So, Lana came out to accompany her to purchase materials. Only her green hair is too conspicuous, and she doesn't like disguise every time. So Natasha Romanoff found out. Natasha Romanoff frowned when she saw Lana, then followed. But this time, she was not impulsive, but watched from a distance. Lana and Susan also don't have the anti-reconnaissance ability and haven't been found to be being followed. Followed all the way until Lana and Susan bought something and then watched from a distance as the two were preparing to enter the private apartment. So, coincidentally, right next to SHIELD, Natasha Romanoff was speechless. The building of SHIELD is also in Manhattan, which shows how rich SHIELD is. Natasha Romanoff took a note of the location and was ready to approach Lana and Susan again. She is now interested in Lana. But at this moment, Natasha Romanoff's eyes widened. A haunting figure broke into her line of sight and then came to Lana and Susan's side. Obviously, they are together. Bai Xi felt the symbiosis talisman heat up, but he didn't look back. 3 women in one show. Shouldn't we fight when we meet? Bai Xi, uncle, celebrating the 7-day National Day holiday and reading books. Charge 100 and get 500 VIP coupons. Immediately rush to recharge. Event time, October 1st to October 7th. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.